Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto get the sword and become powerful, Naruto x Rance. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Naruto in Japan. Play Sengoku Rance Ost Dignity Hanuji Temple. Inside a dark and foreboding room within the Hanuji temple stood a man no a demon surrounded by dark miasma that gave all a feeling of absolute dread. Die! The demon calmly ate as he shot forth a burst of darkness that sent the men and women surrounding him into various states of unconsciousness. They were those foolish enough to notice the change in the man. The ones who banded together to try to vanquish the demon, and sadly all of them did not even pose as a threat to the demon. Kukuku ha 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 ha, foolish humans, is that it? Asked the once kind ruler, now possessed by the spirit of an ancient evil. His eyes were no longer that of a mortal man, as his sclera turned black and his pupils were crimson red. Even his pet monkey now sported a dark cape and glowing black aura. Is that all your kind can do against me? He boasted out as one of warriors slowly stood up. The teen was beaten, wounded, and bleeding, yet he steadily stood up while glaring at the demon before him. Ha ha ha, as expected of the man who has been a thorn to my side. The demon pointed the palm of his right hand at the teen and fired off another one off his dark ball of energy. The teen, opposing him, didn't reply. He just shakily stood and quickly unsheathed his blade and deflected the shot. The teen had to bite down a yelp of pain as he sheathed his blade once more and looked around the area. His allies were all on the ground, wounded and unconscious after being thoroughly beaten by the demon's last attack. Oh, don't worry about them, Kukuku ha 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 ha, I will make sure to take good care of them after I kill you, the ever-demonic man said as he released more of his thick dark miasma into the air. It was shocking, and teen was trying his best not to falter. I won't, the teen said as he held his still sheathed blade. It was an ordinary weapon and he knew that it wouldn't have any effect on the demon, but he can't give up. He already gave up once and he promised himself never to do it again. What was that mortal? Lose. The teen kicked off the ground and ran towards the demon, his hand holding tight on his blade. In an impressive show of skill, the man drew his sword, in a speed that only the best of the world can even attempt to comprehend. A speed carrying strength unsurpassed among this land. It was the fruition of all those years of training. So with all his might, the teen slashed the demon in the chest. Crack. The sound of something shattering echoed in the room. Along with it shattered the last remaining hope for a victory. Snap. Echoed once more as LF of the teen's blade flew in the air and landed afar. It's over, the demon said as he watched the teen's blade shattered and break upon contact with his demonic chest. The demon smirked as he led his hand back before thrusting it forward, landing knife hand directly at the teen's chest, piercing through front and back. Erg. The teen gurgled out as blood began pouring out of his mouth. I expected more from you, the demon said as he pulled his hand out of the teen's chest before kicking him away. No, can't lose, the teen thought while blood poured out of his mouth as his body slowly fell towards ground. From his now wavering vision he saw the demon grinning madly at him. This is your limit, human, the demon cockily said as he looked down on the now dying teen. It can't end like this, not again, the teen thought as his vision turned dark. Naruto in Japan story starts. Chapter 1. The World of the Warring States. Play Sengoku Rance Ost, Lamentation Konaha. Two figures appeared within a sea of flames. One was leaning against a wall, blood dripping down his stomach. The other was kneeling in front of him in tears as he silently cursed the situation they were. Naruto, the silver-haired man with gravity-defying hair wearing tattered Anbu clothing, said weakly as he coughed out blood. Kakashi's sensei, the blue-eyed spiky-haired blonde Jinchuriki wearing a NBU clothing complete with a ninjutsu strapped to his waist, cried out as he looked at his dying sensei. It's over, Naruto. Konaha has fallen. We've lost the war, the copy nin said weakly. No. Not yet, I can still fight. He snapped back, only for his sensei to place his hand on the younger shinobi's head and ruffle his hair gently. Naruto, everyone's dead. It's just the two of us against Dara. He coughed out more blood as he clutched a wound in his stomach. The war was already lost. But, He tried to rebuttal but he couldn't think of an right response. His sensei was right. Was no way the two of them were going to win this. Even if they managed to defeat Obito and the Jubi, it left behind a livid Edo Tensei Madara who proceeded to spam his gigantic meteors to annihilate the majority of the allied shinobi forces within minutes. Those who lived through that and escaped to regroup died shortly after the Uchiha began hunting down the shinobis, destroying one nation after another until made his way to his last destination, Konaha. The once 80,000 strong shinobis and samurais from the entire elemental nation were cut down to only 100. 100 who made their last stand against Madara in the city that the man co-founded. They didn't last an hour even with the man toying around. But despite that he still wanted to fight, but even if he could, his tenant Kurama was currently incapacitated inside, having used majority of her chakra to block an Amaterasu-infused meteorite that almost killed the blonde Jinchuriki. Throughout his life this was the only time that the blonde felt so helpless. It was the one time that despite not wanting to he was forced to give up. They have already lost and he knew it. Kakashi smiled sadly underneath his face mask as he made his decision. He was going to die, that was for sure, but Naruto still had a whole life ahead of him, seeing as he just turned 19 a few days ago. Naruto, he called out weakly as the blonde was snapped out of his thinking. Yes, sensei. Naruto frantically asked as he held on to Kakashi. I promised everyone that, if it came to this, I'd use Kamui on you, he said weakly, struggling to saw why those words as he felt himself losing more blood. They have already concluded during the match against Obito that Kamui was in fact connected to another dimension, which dimension they did not know. But as of now anywhere else was better than being here. Wait, what do you mean, sensei? If you use Kamui on me, doesn't that mean you're sending me to another dimension? Why, I want to stay here and fight until the end, the teen argued back. The silver-haired Jonin placed his bloodied hand on Naruto's cheek as he found his second breath. You really grew up to be a great ninja, Naruto, but remember the sacrifices. He didn't need to add anything as he saw the boy's eyes suddenly widen. Don't throw away the life they protected like this, the life Minato-sensei, Kushina-san, the cages, the whole shinobi alliance protected. I smiled. Nay Naruto, a life that you want to live a happy life for everyone, okay? Kakashi-sensei, the blonde closed his eyes. His sensei was right, he was being foolish. There were so many that died for him. That die so that he could live, it would be insulting their sacrifices if he just stayed here and died. So through his sobs the blonde forcefully chalked out his response. Hi, sensei. I'll see you later, Naruto. Kakashi said as he activated the Mangekyo Sharingan in his left eye. Kamui, he shouted out as a small wormhole appeared the fabric of space and time slowly absorbing the younger shinobi in it. Just don't be late, sensei. Naruto replied, still in tears, as he slowly disappeared into the void of the technique. Haha. I won't be late. Just make sure you don't come back early, Naruto, said the dying shinobi as he coughed out more blood. The man looked up to around as his vision wavering as he saw another figure coming from the sea of flames. Uchiha Madara, Kakashi thought as he placed his hand over his left eye. There was one more thing that he had to do before he could pass on. Biting down as hard as he could, Kakashi placed his fingers inside his left eye socket and with one swift stroke pulled out his left eye. He had to muffle down a scream of pain as he quickly channeled Raiden chakra into his hand and crushed the eyeball. With that, Madara had no way of following Naruto. He chuckled dryly. Even in defeat he managed to find a small semblance of victory. This isn't such a bad way to die, he thought. Looked up to the skies, ignoring the footsteps from the man who promised his death. His life flashed before his eyes as he smiled. Sensei, Rin. Obito. Everyone, I'll be seeing you guys soon, he get out harshly as he finally felt his body giving up on him. I hope you find happiness, Naruto, Kakashi whispered out as he closed his eyes. With the death of Hakat Kakashi, Uchiha Madara ceased his rampage. Satisfied after finally achieving his twisted wish of peace, the man dispelled his Edo Tensei and went back to the realm of the dead. The shinobi era ended that day with its only survivor thrown to another world. Naruto in Japan. Yumato. It was nighttime in Yumato, a forested mountainous area ruled by the Iga House of Japan. The land was well known for throughout Japan as being the den of ninjas. On top of the roof of the main house of the clan hidden within the forest of Yumato was none other than Inukai, the young leader of Iga who wishes to protect the right and status of the fading ninja dynasty throughout Japan. I feel a foreboding future for our clan, he said as he looked at the night sky. Despite his wishes to help his kin, he knew it was impossible. For his dream to be achieved, they needed to unite this war-torn era under the banner of the ninjas. Inukai sighed as he looked at the map sprawled beside him. It was a map of Japan and labeled in it was 4 distinct houses. The Mori House of the West was steadily gaining power as Mori Motonari and his daughters continued to lay waste upon the western side of Japan. On the opposite side were the Takeda House led by the ever-powerful Takeda Shingen and his 4 generals, who constantly clashes against Suin's Huju House with its powerful Shikigami practitioners and the goddess of war herself Uesugi Kenshin of the Uesugi House. Those 4 were the 4 most powerful houses in Japan and were currently the major threats towards his wish for the continuation of the ninja legacy. The man sighed again. He just knew as they were now it was impossible for them to even last a month against those great nations. He looked at the other nearby nations as he began thinking out the house's next course of action. Beside their house were the Hara, Oda, Ashikaga, and the Tenshi sect. Oda would be easy pickings because of the constant infighting happening within the nation, but they still did not have enough funds for a continued war against that nation. The Ashikaga house, despite being led by an incompetent man, still had enough resources and manpower to last a whole war against Iga. He knew that fighting Ashikaga would eventually lead to a battle of contrition which he was fairly sure their side would lose. Hara, on the other hand, was a perfect nation to attack. Its ruler was rather incompetent and weak, and from his spies he has heard that the man's wife is wasting their land's resources. They could also attack the Tenshi, but it would be a foolish endeavor. The Tenshi sect is almost untouchable lest they want to be branded as the enemies of all the members of the religion which made up at least 50% of the whole nation of Japan. The man sighed again. This is certainly not good. We need time, a year or two to get enough resources. But I fear that by then one of the other nations would have conquered the land. He took the maps and rolled them up. Perhaps this our era was meant to end with me, man said sadly as he looked over the horizon. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly the several sounds of several explosions came from afar, shocking the Iga house leader. What was that? Report. The man shouted out. Sir, someone is invading our territory. A ninja who suddenly appeared in a swirl of leaves beside Inukai said. Is it from another house? Inukai asked as he stood up from his seat. Don't know, sir, but as far as we can tell it's a male foreigner with blonde hair who uses ninjutsu. A foreign ninja is attacking our clan. Inukai growled in anger. He despised foreign ninjas since it was known that they stole the art from Japan and bastardized it to their own needs. Inukai whistled as he called out his trusted companions, the Wanwan Ninkins. Is there anyone in the scene? Yes, but I am sorry to say that the Gonanjai has already fallen while Suzume-sama is busy dealing with the ninja. Inukai-sama, I fear that Suzume-sama needs backup. Why is that? Inukai asked, shocked that he considered his elite ninjas would be needing help to fight against some unknown foe. The report we got from Blue Sand said that their group were effortlessly defeated, said the ninja who kept his head bowed down. Very well, lead me to the way, Inukai said as he and the ninja disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Naruto in Japan. Earlier, somewhere near Yumato. In the forested mountains of Yumato, a tiny wormhole appeared in the air and from it fell an unconscious spiky-haired blonde shinobi. With a loud thud the teen plummeted to the ground, creating a small crater beneath him. As expected from a filled with nothing but ninjas, not even a minute has passed before 5 ninjas dressed in what looked like Sentai-based ninja wear surrounded the unconscious blonde. A foreigner. The one wearing the red asked as he looked at the teen. From the looks of thing he's a ninja, the green-clad one added. He doesn't look like he's from our clan, the rather stout fellow wearing yellow said. No duh fatso, he's a foreigner, the one in blue said as she started checking out the teen. The one dressed in black shared his opinion. How about we kill him? No, it looks like he's wounded, and he's kinda hot, Blue interjected. No, Blue, everyone cried out, knowing the blue-clad ninjas rather. He is. I dare you to tell me that he doesn't look hot, the girl defended. Well, he is pretty handsome, their leader Red said. There was a small moment of silence as everyone except the still unconscious Naruto stared at the red-clad ninja in shock. Wow, Red, I didn't know you swung that way, Green said as he took a few steps away from Red. So you finally came out of the closet, huh? Good for you, Black cheered him on as he patted the man in the back. Wait, no, that's not what I meant. Come on guys, you know I'm not gay, I'm married for Tenshi's sake. Red defended himself as he waved his hands in front of himself. Hee, I always knew you went for the other team, Blue teased. I said that's not true. While Blue, Green, and Black were busy messing with Red, the one clad in yellow was slowly inching his way towards the unconscious teen. You see, the one in yellow had a bad habit of stealing stuff, and after seeing the ninjutsu strapped on the man's back he knew he just had to steal it. The man licked his lips underneath his yellow mask as his left hand slowly inched towards the blade. It was really a bad case of judgment on his part. Shing, huh, thud. The yellow ninja looked in shock as he heard something falling on his side. Looking to his side, he found that his left hand was already in the ground, surrounded by a pool of blood. The kleptomaniac ninja screamed out in pain before he found a kunai jabbed through his helmet with such strength that it went through the other side of his helmet. Red, Blue, Black, and Green stopped arguing almost immediately as they watched their close friend and ally Yellow fall on the ground. The four directed their attention towards the once unconscious teen. It was already late in the night, so they did not really notice the man's features, but as the moon shone down on him they finally got a full view of the teen. He was probably around 18 or 19 with spiky blonde hair and cold cerulean blue eyes, holding an unsheathed ninjutsu in hand. The teen was wearing a white armor-like vest and black gloves that went to his shoulders underneath a pair of white arm guard. He was also wearing a matching pair of plain black pants and black boots. He looked pretty impressive for a teen his age, but that really wasn't what caught the four's attention. Neither was the fact that he effortlessly killed their friend. No, it was the facts that despite standing in front of them they barely feel the man's presence, and that was a trait only shown by the best in their profession. Quote ellipsis. Quote. The teen didn't say as he slowly stood up from the crater. He looked around and saw the other ninjas and ignored them for a moment as he prompted to look at the night sky instead. Kakashi-sensei, the teen said bitterly as he realized that he was in fact in a new world. He closed his eyes as a few drops of tears flowed down into his cheeks. I promise, I'll live a happy life, he said as he broke his gaze from the moon and finally looked at those around him. He then proceeded to sweat drop when he saw what he assumed were ninjas in front on him. Oh Kami, where the hell did that Kamui send me? Naruto groaned, placing his hand on his head. The teen started rubbing his temples as he looked at the four individuals in front of him. Suffice to say he had to rub his eyes a few times, not believing that he just saw what looked like ninjas wearing Sentai-like uniforms. How he even knew about Sentai uniforms he didn't know. Sighing, Naruto said, "Good evening, would you guys mind telling me where I am?" he asked. Play Sengoku Rance asked. Drive back the enemy. Their response was to start hurling shurikens at him. Huh, why are they attacking me? The blonde thought as he held his ninjutsu with one hand in a reverse grip and started parrying all of the bladed projectiles. What the hell? Is this how people here answer a simple question? He shouted at them. You killed our friend. The man in red replied as he stopped throwing shurikens and opted to pull out his tanto and hold it firmly in his hand, as he charged towards his friend's murderer. What? Naruto asked as he swung his ninjutsu and blocked a swipe from the red-clad man's tanto. Naruto then used his free hand to punch he red-clad ninja in the gut, forcing him to back away. The blonde then jumped to avoid a well-coordinated two-pronged attack from the green and black-clad ninjas that attempted to slash him with their respective tantos. You killed Yellow, the one clad in blue shouted out as she met Naruto midair. Holding a tanto in both hands, the only female member of the group began her assault as she tried to attack both high and low, aiming for both the man's chest and legs simultaneously. Emphasis on try as the man effortlessly blocked her blows with his ninjutsu. I just woke up. How the hell could I? He twisted his body to avoid a thrust from the girl's tanto aimed for his chest. Kill someone, he added as he kicked the girl in the shoulder. Ouch, that's going hurt. Naruto though, as he heard a loud crack coming from the girl's shoulder before she was sent spiraling down towards the ground. Blue. The one in red shouted out as he quickly caught the girl in his hands before jumping away as the one in black and green ran towards where they predicted the blonde would land. Die. The two shouted in unison as they jumped towards the blonde tanto already aimed for the teen's chest. Naruto saw the two coming at him in slow motion. They were slow, Chunin level speed if he had to grade them. Sheathing his ninjutsu back in its sheath, the blonde closed his eyes as he slowly felt the two moving through the air. The blonde kept his eyes closed as he recalled a technique secretly passed on to only a handful within Konaha. A technique honed by the Nidaime Hokage. A technique he mastered and tried to use against Madara. It didn't work well against the immortal Uchiha, but he was pretty sure it would work on any other ninjas. Harai Shingiri, the blonde silently muttered out as he drew his sword in an incredible speed and sliced both of ninjas. Naruto gently landed on the ground as he quickly flicked the blood off his sword and sheathed his ninjutsu. Click. There was a loud squirt ing sound in the air as both ninjas that were flying at him only moments ago screamed out as a large gash that squirted out huge amounts of blood appeared across their chests. Naruto heard two loud T-huds coming from behind him and did not bother to turn around as he looked at the red nin still standing in front of him. Naruto sighed. I'm really sorry about that, but you guys attacked me first. What the hell are you talking about? You killed Yellow. The man shouted out as he pointed at their companion who was lying dead on the ground. He looked at the yellow-clad ninja that had a kunai sticking out from the opposite side of his helmet. I have no idea who that is and how he's like that, Naruto defended, but internally he winced. The man probably tried to touch him when he was passé out, meaning his battle-honed instincts probably instantaneously kicked in, defended himself from the man. Not even a day has passed and you already killed someone in this new world. Good job Naruto, good job. He didn't really have any qualms with killing. He was a ninja for Kami's sake, of course, had already killed in the past. He didn't live in some kind of fantasy world where you can talk people into surrendering. No, he lived in a world of ninjas where killing was second nature, but he did prefer not to kill needlessly, so this one was definitely his bad. Grr. Red growled out as he cradled Blue in his arms. Blue, run and call for help, the man said as he gently dropped the girl on the ground. But Red, the girl tried to argue back. No buts, I'll hold him back, go. Red held Tai Tly on his tanto in his left hand while holding on a kunai in his right. Wait, Red, don't. Blue, you have to call for help. He looked at the girl. Call for Suzume-sama, call for Inakai-sama. Think things through, you have a family. Don't just throw your life away. The man in red let out a dry laugh. You guys are as close to me as my real family. I'm willing to die for you guys as much as I am willing to die for my real family. While this was happening, Naruto was just standing in the side, sweat dropping. Should I attack them? He thought as he watched the drama between the red and blue-clad Sentai ninjas. Nah, I'll give them a few minutes to sort it out. But Red, I love you, Red. I love you too, Blue. But go, I'll hold him back, he shouted out. Promise me you'll come back. I promise, now go. Goodbye, Red. The girl replied as she started running away, leaving behind her teammate to his fate. The man clad in red then turned around and faced the rather impassive-looking blonde Hinobi, who was really contemplating about if he really just witnessed that whole dramatic scene in front of him. If they were back in his world, the two would have been dead already. You shall fall by my blade, Red proclaimed as he held on to both his weapons. The man then made a rather exaggerated pose as he was suddenly covered by red flame-like energy that enveloped him. Hi-ya-ah, HH, the man shouted as the energy surrounding him got bigger and brighter. The former shinobi of the now destroyed Konaha raised an eyebrow as he felt the man's chakra increase. It wasn't much, but He-Man went from a measly chunin into a jonin. This is the secret technique passed down through hundreds of generations of Gonenjai. Red, the man crouched on the ground as he held both of his weapons back-handed. Gonenjai Hisatsu. Akiro Senko, red flash, the red-clad man said as he vanished in a blur of red light. Yellow, black, and green. This is for all of my fallen friends, the man outed as he swung his blades towards the blonde in a cross-like manner. Die, he shouted out in the top of his lungs. Naruto just sweat dropped as he took one step to the side effortlessly dodging the man's rather straightforward attempt to kill him. The blonde just shook his head as he unstrapped his still-sheathed ninjutsu from his waist and held it up in the air before smashing it down on the red ninja's head just as he passed by. Ga aacccckkkkk. The man cried out as he dramatically fell to the ground. I'm sorry, Blue, I can't keep my promise, my friends, we'll see each other soon. The man silently said as he fell on the ground. What the hell is wrong with this world? Naruto asked to no one really as he palmed his face. Okay, the world had ninjas, but if all the ninjas here are as irritating as the ones he just fought, then he was pretty sure that Kakashi-sensei must have killed him with the Kamui and he's now in hell. Mohahoho. You're good nin. Naruto heard a feminine voice from someone nearby. He tilted his head towards the direction of the voice. The blonde shinobi had to force back a blush as he saw one of the most beautiful kunoichis he has ever seen sitting on top a nearby tree. She was probably around his age. The girl was a head shorter than he was, and her skin was slightly tanned, matching her long blue hair that gave her that was styled T. Oh, make it look like she had two blue cat ears like ears. She was wearing a very short dark blue kimono that barely covered her chest and stopped just right above her thighs. To finish of her attire, she was also wearing dark blue stockings that went just above her knees and black slippers. Thank you. He scratched the back of his head. I just want to ask, are all the ninjas like the ones I just defeated, or is it just them? Just them. They're a pretty weird bunch, the girl replied as I internally sighed in relief. Thanked Kami. Naruto thought. Anyo Oni-san, mind telling me where I am right now? You don't know. You're in Yumato territory of the one and only ninja clan in Japan, the Iga house. Nin. The girl cheerfully responded. I see. The blonde said no, he didn't see, he street. Il had no clue about where this Yumato or Japan is, he just knew that he somehow stumbled on a hidden village in a different world, and judging by the way the girl in front of her was acting, she was probably one of the stronger ninjas from the village. Would you be kind enough to just let me leave in peace? Nope. The girl said as she threw 12 shurikens at me. Figures, Naruto mumbled out as he once again blocked all the shurikens with his ninjutsu. He then narrowed his eyes when he saw the shurikens. They looked like normal shurikens, but they had a weird shine to them. Poison. Blue-eyed shinobi thought as he quickly sheathed his ninjutsu. He then back-flipped away from a few barrage of shurikens coming from the kunoichi before stopping and jumping behind a tree for cover. Hey Kurama-chan, are you already up? Naruto asked, only to get no response. Damn, without his tenant channeling her chakra in him, he was susceptible to poison. This did not bode well for the Jinchuriki. Placing a hand on his vest, Naruto pulled out 3 kunais with explosion tags wrapped on them. He then left his cover as he looked for my target and found her jumping from tree to tree as she kept throwing more and more of her poison projectiles at the Nohanin, forcing him on the defensive. He grinned. The kunoichi is good, definitely elite jonin material. Let's see how you deal with this, With a flick of his wrist, Naruto quickly threw the 3 kunais. One was aimed towards her and the other 2 were aimed at where she was possibly going to jump away to. Naruto did not, however, expect her to stop on her tracks and suddenly throw a barrage of glowing shurikens at his projectiles. Chun shuriken. The girl shouted out as, to my surprise, her shurikens blocked the kunais and forced them to detonate mid-flight. Boom boom boom. The sounds of his kunais exploding filled the air as dust covered the area and hid the 2 combatants from each other. Naruto whistled. She's good, he said as he ducked down on the ground to evade a kick aimed for his head. The blonde shinobi then twisted his as he kicked upwards. Kage Buyu, he said as he felt his feet hit someone through the dusty filled ARRGG. He heard as he pushed himself off the ground and towards the voice in the grinned as the dust began to clear. He was just underneath the kunoichi and was in a perfect place to either copy Lee and do an Omid Renge, or copy Sasuke and do a Shishi Renden, both of which he was sure would incapacitate the girl. Deciding to go for the Shishi Renden, Naruto placed his hand on the L back, signaling the beginning of the attack, only for his eyes to widen when he felt something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Following his instincts, Naruto quickly made a cage bunshin and had it grab him midair and made it throw him far away. He was glad he followed his instincts, as a moment later the girl vanished in a puff of smoke as several of her shurikens sailed past her and hit the same spot he was in moments ago. You know make clones well nin? The kunoichi asked curiously as she jumped out of a nearby tree. Cage bunshin actually, Naruto corrected her. You're pretty good Oni-san, what's your name? He asked as he tried to hide the fact that he was exhausted. He did just come out of a wormhole after just battling and losing against the strongest ninja in the entire history of the elemental nations. Safe to say that one cage bunshin depleted what little chakra he had left. He had to finish this soon and escape before more of them arrived. Suzume, she replied cheerfully as she threw another barrage of shuriken. My name is Naruto. The teen introduced himself as he channeled chakra into his legs and disappeared in a burst of speed, surprising the kunoichi. The T.N. vanished in a burst of speed as he then reappeared in front of the kunoichi. The blue-haired girl barely had any time to put her hands up and guard her vital areas as the teen began his furious ult of sharp jabs that pummeled her body. The blonde pulled his left fist back as he channeled his chakra into it. Nice to meet you, Suzume, Naruto told her as punched her guard, blowing it away as the kunoichi flew through the air because of the sheer power of the blonde's blow. Strong, she thought as she winched in pain while using her now bruised arms to grab onto a nearby tree branch and pull herself up on another tree. Nice to meet you too, Fishcake-san. The she replied as she shook both of her arms to try and ease the stinging pain that she felt. It means Maelstrom Kami, damn it. Nah. Ruto complained as he stomped the ground before stopping and frowning as he felt another nearby presence land on top of a tree just beside the kunoichi. He sighed. Let me guess you're the leader of this place? Naruto asked as he looked at the newcomer. A man with silver hair slicked back wearing purple ninja garbs with a katana strapped firmly on his back. He has really tanned skin as well as virile scars all over his rather muscular body. On the man's side were a few dogs that Naruto assumed were some kind of ninken. My name is Inukai, the man said as he looked at the blonde-haired shinobi. He was slightly unnerved by the fact that he did not feel the man's presence at all until he came to this area. The leader of the Iga house looked around and, like what the reports said, all the other members of the Gonenjai were already defeated. From the side of his vision he could see that Suzume was breathing rather heavily as she too focused her eyes on the teen below them. I'm really sorry about what happened with those. Naruto paused as he thought of the proper words to use and decided to go with unique ninjas, but do know they attacked me first. Blue said you killed Yellow and start the whole fight. Inukai replied sternly as he kept his eyes on the teen. Lies, he instantly replied. No, you pretty much killed Yellow first and started the entire thing in your sleep, Suzume added. As she saw the blonde suddenly look at her with slightly widened eyes. You were watching? He asked as the kunoichi nodded in response. Naruto sighed as he visibly deflated. Sorry. Just for the second time that day Naruto was answered by a hail of shurikens all flying towards him at high speed. Figures, Naruto jumped back a few times before drawing his ninjutsu and used it to furiously block the barrage of poisoned shurikens. The blonde clicked his tongue as he saw both ninjas vanish from their respective trees. Naruto placed his hand on his ninjutsu as he channeled chakra into his legs. Naruto closed his eyes for a few moments as he tried to hone into the location of the two opposing ninjas. There, Naruto whispered as he kicked himself off the ground and ran towards his nearby tree. Naruto began zigzagging to evade more shurikens thrown at him. He then drew his ninjutsu channeling Fuden chakra along its blade as he let out one slash before slowly sheathing it once more. Fuden. Shinkuken. Click came the loud sound of his ninjutsu being returned to its sheath, echoing in the air as dozens of nearby trees were sliced in half, forcing the cat-like kunoichi to jump away from her hiding spot within one of the fallen trees. Before the kunoichi could even land and find another hiding spot, she found herself entranced as she saw a pair of cerulean blue eyes looking right at her. Being a kunoichi, she was already used in seducing men, so she was used seeing one or two pretty boys like the blonde in front of her, but for some reason she felt something strange about the teen. She looked closely at the teen's eyes as her own suddenly widened. So powerful, she whispered out before feeling a sharp pain in the back of her head. Yet lonely, the girl added before her vision went black. For the first time in years, the kunoichi known as Suzume, known for her 100% mission success rate and unparalleled strength when it came to the way of the ninja, lost in the hands of a certain blue-eyes shinobi. Naruto caught the kunoichi's body midair as he landed on the ground. He then walked to a nearby tree and gently placed the girl underneath it. Rest for now, Suzume. Assassination. Naruto's eyes widened as he heard those words behind him. Fast, the blonde said as he quickly spun around and drew his ninjutsu to block Inakai's tanto before it could slice through his jugular. Judging from the purple-clad ninja's surprised expression, he wasn't expecting Naruto to block that attack. So would you mind letting me go now? Naruto asked as he pushed against Inakai's tanto before purposely weakening his grip and making the Iga-nin tilts towards him. Specifically towards the knee that the blonde brought up and smashed into the man's stomach, forcing him to jump back. As the Naruto sheathed his ninjutsu once more. Grh. Inakai grunted out as he placed a hand over his stomach. The teen was definitely strong, and based on how he easily defeated Suzume, he was really at huge disadvantage right now. Placing 2 fingers in his hand, the man let out a loud whistle as his 3 ninkins started running towards Naruto. Cute dogs, Naruto couldn't hello but mumble out as he looked at the 3 small dogs. They were really cute and tiny, how can they even hurt him? He then saw the dogs opened their small and cute mouths and revealed that they had monstrous canines that made Akamaru's look like a puppy. For Kami's sake, those teeth were comparable to the scales of Samahata. How was that even possible? Immediately channeling chakra into his feet, Naruto jumped towards a nearby tree and started walking up, but to his surprise the dogs were walking up the tree as well. Halfway through his climb, the former shinobi of Konaha kicked off the tree and landed in Anath. To evade another barrage of shurikens heading his way. Well, at least there's only 3 of them. Naruto smiled as he looked at the dogs. As long as there were only 3 of them, they wouldn't be much of a problem considering he could outrun them. The blonde said as he felt dozens of small vibrations converging towards the area. Wan. What the h? He didn't finish as he saw dozens of those same cute yet monstrous dogs running from the forest towards as they made their way towards him. The blonde said, gulping as he desperately resisted the urge to palm his face. Me, and my big mouth. He really just had to tempt fate. Stupid Naruto, he thought as he placed his hand closer to his ninjutsu, ready to draw it at any moment. Good doggies. Sick boys, he hear. From Inakai before the man vanished in the shadows of the forest. Well, fuck. Naruto cursed as the dogs jumped off from the ground towards him, mouth open wide. The blonde swung his still sheathed ninjutsu towards one dog, smashing its teeth before spinning around and hitting a few others with punches, elbows and kicks. Before any of them could even get close to him, he then ducked to avoid one that tried to bite his head off. This was going to be annoying. Clicking his tongue, Naruto jumped off the tree and landed in another. He did dare look back as he knew that those dogs were jumping from the tree as well and heading towards him. Stupid ninja-trained dogs. Naruto took a deep breath to calm himself down as he started jumping from tree to tree to avoid the dogs. He needed to take these dogs out in one blow before he could even deal with Inakai and then possibly escape this place. Speaking of Inakai, the man a few meters away from the blonde shinobi and once again began raining hails hails of poisoned shurikens at him, forcing Naruto quickly sent 3 high-speed slashes, sheathing his ninjutsu in between to block the man's assault. There, Naruto though, as he saw a small clearing nearby, it had just enough space for him to use one of his attacks to take out all the ninkins. Channeling what little of the chakra he had left into his feet, Naruto kicked off the tree he was standing on and flipped through the air as he landed on the clearing. The moon was shining down on him as Naruto took another deep breath and closed his eyes before getting into a basic stance taught to him by Mifune. His feet was spread apart, body slightly leaning towards the direction of the dogs as he held his still sheathed ninjutsu on his left hand while holding it in its handle with his right. Now it was life or death, and he was pretty sure that those dogs shared his idea of just letting bygones be bygones without hurting or possibly eating the other. Sorry, he whispered as he began, focusing his senses towards each and every dog running at him, 101 in total. Truth be told, the way he is now, Naruto preferred using his ninjutsu over his fists. Why wouldn't he, having been taught in the ways of the sword by the best kenjutsu experts around the elemental nations during the war? He could proudly say that he was one of the, if not the best kenjutsu expert in the whole nation at one point in time. Hell, even Uchiha Madara, despite the rage-induced douche that he was, acknowledged the blonde's prowess with a sword when he took down Obito with the Hiraishingiri. His sword and jutsus were still too weak when compared to the Edo-revived Uchiha, otherwise he wouldn't be getting hounded on by a pack of dogs right now. And so Naruto kept his eyes closed as he recalled a lesson from Mifune. Draw quickly, move gracefully, strike powerfully, before sheathing the blade as quickly as one draws it. Iado, Naruto whispered as he carefully honed on all 100. Ed Wanwan's carefully noting the slight shift in the air coming from several shurikens heading his way as well. The blonde shinobi slowly channeled chakra all over the sword and his body before kicking off the ground. From his hiding spot, Inukai blinked. That was all it took for him to miss the teen's attack. With a blink of an eye, the teen was already behind the pack of dogs holding a ninjutsu drawn from its sheath. There was a small moment of silence as he slowly sheathed his blade once more. Ayagiri, he whispered out as he fully sheathed his blade while the moon continued to shine down on him. Click. Inukai, who was hiding nearby, watched in shock as the teen sheathed his blade. He heard the silent clicking sound before it was slowly followed by the sounds of several loud thuds, dread and one thuds to be specific, that came from the Wanwans. The purple-clad Iga Nin gulped as a bead of cold sweat rolled from his forehead. That is impossible, he muttered in disbelief as he could not believe that his Wanwans, known throughout Japan for taking down armies, was destroyed by just one man. He looked back at the clearing and saw that the teen's back was now facing him. Inukai set his eyes and shook his head, trying to calm himself down as he took another set of shurikens. Opening his eyes once more, he looked at the clearing only to find that the man has already vanished from his spot. Before he could even react, Inukai saw a pair of cerulean blue eyes looking directly at him. It is said that by looking at one's eye can give you a grasp at a person's thoughts, feelings, and even personality. Iga Nins are thought at a young age to read a person through their eyes, being ninjas that specialized in gathering information, stealing, and assassinating, having a good grasp on their target is imperative to their working prowess. So like Suzume before him, he marveled at the sight of powerful yet somewhat lonely eyes, but beyond that he saw the eyes of a warrior who has lived through war. The eyes of one who knew how to lead his men into combat, the eyes that had a making of a good leader. Don't worry, I didn't kill them, Inukai heard from the teen before he felt as sharp pain in his stomach courtesy of a punch from the teen before he was blown back into another tree by a kick in the face. There was a loud cracking sound that echoed in the air as the tree that caught Inukai started breaking. Tap, tap, tap. Inukai coughed out as he heard the silent sound of footsteps heading for him. It didn't really take a genius to guess who it belonged to, and as predicted, only a few seconds later the blue-eyed foreign ninja was standing in front of him. Inukai gulped. Despite being the leader of the Iga clan, he knew that his rank was a high-level ninja, with Suzume being 1 or 2 notches better than he was. Taking one glance at the man after their short battle, if it could even be called a battle, he knew this man in front of him surpassed both of them. The teen had a ninja rank only comparable to the founder of the clan, the very first ninja of Japan. In front of him is a man worthy of the title of a Kage, a man who is truly one with the shadows. A light bulb flashed inside the purple-clad ninja's head. Screw being a foreigner or not, if this man joined their clan, no, if this man leads their clan, he was sure that the ninja would prosper once more throughout Japan. Who are you? The Iga Nin asked as he stared at the teen. Naruto looked at Inukai as various memories of the previous war flashed before his vague eyes. He smiled sadly. Naruto Namikaze, a failure. Oh. F.A. ninja, he replied as the wind suddenly blew, making his clothes flutter with the wind as he took a few steps towards Inukai before slowly falling face first on the ground unconscious. What the? Inukai dumbly asked as he saw the now unconscious teen in front of him. What happened, Nin Nin? The now conscious Suzume asked as she walked towards Inukai while staring at the unconscious teen. Inu. Kai stood up and slowly walked towards the boy before kneeling down in front of him and looked at the teen, noting several injuries in his bodies that he knew neither the two of them or the Gonenjai were responsible for. He's exhausted and wounded. He was probably already tired when he fought us, Inukai said as his respect for the teen went up. To fight and defeat the best that Iga could offer. When you were already badly wounded and injured, if that wasn't impressive then he didn't know what was. Mohoho, we lost to a wounded man. Suzume asked as she looked closely at the unconscious teen and D couldn't help but be impressed in his performance as well. He was the first to have beaten her since she remembered. Her eyes then focused on the teen's face. Are those whisker marks? She asked as she pointed on the boy's cheeks. Who knows? Inukai answered as he grabbed the teen, only for the boy still unconscious to let out a jab that nailed him in the chin, making him drop the blonde on the ground. Ha 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 tilde, you got punched by a sleeping boy, nin nin, Suzume laughed out as she held onto her stomach. The teen way really interesting, but her defeat at his hands left her a bit displeased about the teen. HNN, if I can't beat him in combat then. She thought before stopping when she looked at Inukai, who was growling. Grr, Inukai growled out as he spat out a tooth, even unconscious the blow. NDE proved himself to be both strong and troublesome. He then looked at Suzume as a tick mark appeared on his head. Mind helping out? Hi boss, Suzume said as she crouched down and picked the teen up. On her side, Inukai was already grinning, ready to see the girl get punched as well, only to be surprised when the man did nothing. What the hell? He complained as Suzume placed the teen on her back, piggyback style. He could have sworn that for a split second he saw the blonde teen smiling lecherously when his hands landed on Suzume's chest for a moment. Let's go tilde, Suzume told the Iga leader as she started running back towards their base. Ugh, troublesome, Inukai complained as he ran behind Suzume. Naruto in Japan Mindscape. Within the recesses of the shinobi's unconscious mind, stood a small field along with a hill that was filled with flowers and various greenery. It was a warm, kind, gentle, and peaceful place to be in. The teen was calmly sleeping on top of the hill as he slightly cold breeze of the wind gently hit his skin. Beside the boy was a wonderful woman, long crimson hair, red eyes, bombshell of a body, and let's not forget the two cute red ears, 6 whisk. R-like marks in her face as well as the 9 tails swinging about behind her. The girl smiled as she watched the rise and fall of the boy's chest, but as much as she wanted to let him rest she had to wake the teen up. Naruto-kun, she said as she gently tugged the teen's shoulder. Came an unintelligible grumble from Naruto. Naru-kun, called the red-haired girl as she gently tugged the boy in his shoulder once more. Boo, mumbled the blonde. Oi Naru-kun, she said slowly, running out of patience. Haha, jiggle, jiggle, Naruto said with a perverted grin on his face. Wake up Gaki, shouted the red-haired beauty as she punched the boy in the forehead. She tried to do it gently, but it seems that her tenant really preferred to be awoken like this. Naruto woke up and immediately placed his hands over his forehead. What the hell, Kurama ne? His eyes then widened. Kurama ne? The blonde smiled as he stopped rubbing his forehead and immediately hugged his tenant. Nice to see you again Gaki, the Biju replied as she hugged the blonde teen back. I thought you were dead, yelled Naruto as he broke the hug. Just run out of chakra Gaki, she answered with a smile on her face. It will take way more than that to kill me, she added. Haha, you're just as stubborn at me when it comes to dying, Naruto teased back as he recalled several experiences that he should have died in yet survived nonetheless. The Shinigami hates us, his tenant joked before her smile slowly dropped. Your sensei sent you to another world, she said, shifting the mood of the conversation from a more serious one. Yeah, tell me something I don't know, Naruto replied as he rolled his eyes. Kurama grinned mischievously. Oh, she was going to enjoy this, well. This world is called the continent, a giant land mass floating in the void of the universe supported in the back of 4 holy beasts. This world was apparently created by a gigantic whale god and is Currently divided into 5 or 6 nations if nothing has changed since I last came to this world with the old man, and judging by the looks of the people you saw, you're probably in Japan right now. What? The container asked as he processed the small info dump. Yeah, take that all in, his tenant smugly replied. How the hell do you know so much about this place? Naruto asked. Well, let's just say Rikudo-senin liked to travel. A lot, and he may or may not have used Kamui to go here and enjoy life every now and then, she answered, neglecting to mention that time moves differently between the 2 dimensions. Enjoy life? You mean, yep, to get drunk. Hi, laid, he was quite a kachiku, you know. Pretty violent with the ladies. She then placed her hands on her chin. Heck, I remember. The last time he was here he lost an arm when he tried to get too kinky with some girls. She then laughed. Last time we were here he even adopted this one boy for a while before dumping him off in Me Town and returning to the elemental nations. Naruto rubbed his temples as he sensed a headache coming along. The one considered as a kami amongst their world had a secret lifestyle similar to that of his old sensei Jiraiya. He really didn't need to know that. Well, that's a lot to take in, Naruto admitted as he scratched the back of his head. Yeah, and add to the fact that I can't give you any chakra right now, so that means none of my immunities and regeneration until I get back at full power, Kurama added. How long will that take? Naruto asked. She shrugged as she crossed her arms beneath her chest. I don't know, days, weeks, months. Great, Naruto replied as he rolled his eyes and rubbed his temples. Things were going to be hard without Kurama's chakra for a while, but hopefully he'll manage. Yeah, oh, and you might want to wake up right about now. Huh, why? You'll see, Kurama said with a grin on her face as Naruto just gave her a weird look before leaving his mindscape. Hehehe, I wonder if I should have mentioned that people in this world are really different than the ones back in the elemental nations, she shrugged. Meh, he'll figure it out, the Kyuubi saw it, yawning as she laid down on the grassy hill and curled up into a ball before sleeping. Outside the mindscape, play Sengoku Rance Ost, My Glorious Days V2. If he was any other man he would have already started nose bleeding or grinning madly ready to jump out and pounce on the naked kunoichi in front of him. Around the continent 2 brown-haired men sneezed as both their respective pink-haired companions looked at them. Let it be known though that through his life Naruto Namikaze developed a rather healthy appreciation towards the female body. How could he not when majority of his role models in life were very appreciative of the feminine body as well? But in no way was he a pervert, yeah, not a pervert. Just a healthy teenage male, and he will fight tooth and nail to prove so. Hello Phi. SH Cake, you've been asleep for a whole day, nin nin. The girl greeted cheerfully as she waved her hand as if to say hi. Too bad the blonde's focus wasn't in her hand but rather certain parts that waved along it. Hello Suzume, the blonde replied as he tried processing what was happening. Suzume, can you tell me what you're doing? Kukukuku. I couldn't beat you in combat, so I'll beat you in bed, nin nin. The girl replied as she fist pumped in the air. There was a few seconds of still silence as Naruto just stared at the kunoichi. For some reason he wanted to yell out about eroge logic, but he'd rather not, to keep the fourth wall intact. Naruto looked at his hands and found that they were bound. He then looked at his feet and found that they were bound. He finally looked over his body and found that he was in fact naked. Hehehehe, I'll make you come so much, nin nin, the girl playfully said as she grabbed hold of the teen's hyper weapon, making him yelp. Wah, where are you, Mo? Oh ho ho ho. The girl laughed out as she slowly aligned herself on the teen's hyper weapon, ready to put within the recess of her slightly wet crevice. She was actually exited since the teen was so far the biggest she has seen in her career as a kunoichi. She licked her lips, slowly descending as the hyper weapon met her entrance, but before she could even start what she was planning on doing, she stopped. As the sound of loud footsteps approaching the room got progressively louder and louder. Both of them looked to the side and saw the shoji doors suddenly sliding open to show a rather pissed-off looking Inukai. Suzume, what doing you're doing to our guest? Do it later. I need to talk to him, Inukai ordered. But, wait, not a pervert, the blonde thought as he shook his head. He was not a pervert. Just someone who admires the female body. He then suddenly paused as he could have sworn he heard the familiar laughing of a certain perverted toad sage from the afterlife. Stupid. Ero Senin, he whispered. But, no buts Suzume. Deciding he was bound for long enough, Naruto threw in his own 2 cents into the conversation. Can you guys untie me first, or better yet, give me some clothes? He asked as the two stopped arguing for a minute and stared at their blonde captive as if they forgot about him. Oh, both said comically as they bopped their hands on an open fist. Ugh. Just, give me some clothes. Naruto groaned as he felt another headache coming along. This was really not how he expected to spend his first day in this world. Naruto in Japan. Secret Iga base in Yumato. Wit. In the Iga house's rather fortified and hidden base was a wide 4-sided room with 4 shoji doors in all sides. Despite its size, it was a rather simple room with little to no decoration except for its floors that were made of high-grade tatami. The room itself was often used as a meeting hall for the Iga nin. Within the simple room, Naruto sat on the floor silently. He was now clothed and even armed. He just had to wonder who gave them the idea of giving a weapon to their supposed prisoner. Then again, he could sense almost 1,000 presences nearby, and judging from the key, they were a all of them were ready to cut him down if necessary. Naruto sighed as he then looked at the purple-clad ninja who was sitting just opposite him. So since I'm not yet dead, I'm guessing you need something from me. Yes, Inukai replied before bowing down into a dogeza. Judging from the sounds of gasping Naruto heard, apparently he wasn't the only one surprised at the silver-haired man's actions. Naruto-sama, I wish for you to become the new leader of Iga. Inukai almost yelled out as more silent gasps echoed in the area. Wait, we just met and you want me to take over your country and lead your people? Why the heck would you do that? Naruto snapped back, a bit shocked at the man's request. Because we need power, Inukai replied as he kept himself prostrated. And despite attacking and showing yourself superior to us, you have not killed any single one of my men. Huh, I thought that they said I killed the one in yellow. He got better, was Inukai's only reply as he decided to cut that conversation there. Naruto-sama, times are changing, and I am sad to say that our kind, the ninjas, are on a brink of slowly being fading away. With the rise of the samurais during this war-torn time, we have been getting less and fewer jobs, and I'm afraid that war may eventually reach my land, a land that wishes to protect the right and social status of ninjas throughout Japan. Quote, Naruto frowned as he processed what the man said. Asking to make him their leader aside, it shocked the blonde to know that this new world he was currently in was in the midst of a war. Will true peace ever come? He thought as he remembered the horror he has experienced through his own war. Safe to say his innocence died somewhere along the line. How can he live the peaceful life his dying sensei wished for him if this world was engulfed in war? So you want me to be the new leader of Iga? He repeated the man's question to clarify the offer. Hi, Naruto-sama. Why me? He asked once more. Because Naruto-sama, you show strength that has not graced our land since the time of the founders of Iga, the strength of a man who is one with the shadows, the strength of a cage. And how can you be sure that I can lead you and your men? For all you know, I may be an enemy sent here to exterminate your clan. If you were, you would have done so already, Inukai said, still prostrating. You got me on that one, nah. Naruto chuckled dryly, letting out a goofy grin as he scratched the back of his head. But how can you put your trust on someone who you just met? Your eyes, the man answered. My eyes, yes, your eyes showed great power as well as strength befitting that of both a warrior and a leader. Inukai answered for the man once more. So that's why you want me to be your leader? Hi, the man sternly replied. Naruto closed his eyes for a moment before looking at his ninjutsu. He knew that with his strength now that he can make a difference in this new world, but should he take up his blade and fight with Inukai to lead the ninjas to a new future? No, he internally shook his head. He knew little about Japan and about the war itself. It would be foolish to pick one side immediately. He had to get a good grasp of the situation first before he acts. Making his decision, he looked at the prostrating leader. Rise, Inukai, he started as the man slowly got up from his doggies. Does this mean, Naru? To sighed as he shook his head. I am not from around here, Inukai-san, he said as he looked at the man and saw him nodding. He thought the man might have already made a conclusion that he was foreigner or something because of his hair color. I don't know anything about this land. Naruto frowned slightly. I don't know anything about this war, He then paused as he took a deep breath. I want to see the land first before I make my decision, Inukai-san. I wish to this war and how it has affected the people before I make a decision. Is that okay with you, Inukai-san? The silver-haired ninja close. His eyes before answering. Very well, Naruto-sama. Seek out the land and know that my offer shall stand until the end of time. Thank you, Inukai-san. Naruto politely replied as he gently bowed his head as a sign of respect. Inukai snapped his fingers as a ninja carrying a small bag appeared by his side. I somewhat knew that it would turn out like this. So I have prepared this beforehand. Inukai took out the contents of the bag and placed it in front of the blonde shinobi. A map of Japan and some gold, that is all that I can offer you, Naruto-sama, the man said as he gave Naruto the items that he will need for his travels. This is more than enough. Thank you for your kindness. Naruto bowed once more as he kindly collected the map and deposited the small bag of gold in his pocket. May your travels lead you back here to Yumato. Inukai then clicked his fingers once more, making two other ninjas appear by his side. If you wish to leave, these two will kindly escort you out of Yumato. Now that they have to blindfold you along the way since we are at one of our secret bases. Naruto nodded in understanding. No problem. He then looked at the ninjas. If you wouldn't mind, I would like to leave now, he said as he slowly stood up. With his sheathed ninjutsu in hand, the teen followed the two ninjas and left the room. Is this wise, Inukai-sama? The remaining ninja in the room asked as he looked at the current head of the household. Yes, I am sure that he shall return. Inukai closed his eyes. I just hope he has found his answer by then, he added as he ordered the remaining ninja to leave him alone. Did he really make the right decision? Or should he have coerced the man into joining? Only time will tell if the seeds he planted this day will bear fruit. Naruto in Japan. After a rather rough half-hour or so of traversing the forested mountains of Yumato, blindfolded if he may add, Naruto was finally relieved of the restraints on his eyes and was allowed to see the warm rays of the sun seeping through the heavy leaves of the forests. He assumed that he was at the foot of the mountain, but he did need someone to confirm his thoughts. Turning around, the blonde shinobi tried to both ask and thank his two companions, only for one to grunt at him while the other hissed before leaving him alone, not bothering to answer his question. They must have been mad at him. Naruto sighed as he started walking a nearby path that led down. He definitely set a bad first impression to the Iganin. Beating the crap out of their elites and leader tends to do that. Speaking of elites, he could have sworn he saw one of them nearby, but then again it might have been his eyes playing tricks on him. Shook his head, Naruto continued to walk down the path with no real destination in mind. The blonde shinobi had no idea how much time has passed by as he walked down the only road. The scenery has changed a bit, with the trees getting fewer while various bushes sprung about in between the trees. He couldn't help but let out a sad smile. The place reminded him of the forests near Konaha before they were burned to the ground. He momentarily stopped walking and closed his eyes. The sun was bright and warm. The breeze was cool and gentle. The birds were chirping happily in the air. It was peaceful. It was a perfect day to be alive. And just by that, Naruto knew that something bad was going to happen soon. Despite not wanting to admit it, Naruto knew that he was a magnet for trouble. Let it be known that there is never a peaceful day in the life of one Naruto Namikaze, only varying degrees of chaos. The Namikaze teen sighed for the third time that day when he heard the sounds of twigs snapping and rustling of bushes from nearby. Even in a new world, trouble seems to always find me. Can I ever find peace, Datbeo? The shinobi complained as, like what he expected, several figures walked out of the bushes. There was 6 of them, men of varying stature and postures, all carrying weapons of different kinds. Bandits, huh? Naruto snickered. These guys didn't really pose much of a threat. Oi oi oi, Oni-san. The biggest, baldest, and most muscular of the bandits said as the others slowly surrounded Naruto. You have fancy looking clothes there, he added. Naruto had to visibly wince at the stench coming from the man. The thick stench of blood. Strike 1. Naruto ignored the man and tried to walk away while the rather large bandit continued his banter. Hey, I'm talking to you. Are you stupid or something? Dumb blonde. The man shouted out, making his companions laugh. Strike 2. I don't really have time for this. Can you and your friends get out of my way before I start killing people? Peef the haha good one Oni-san, but you now that I got a better look your key. Te pretty, the bandit said as he smirked while Naruto felt shivers running down his spine. So why don't you give us your sword and strip so we can all take turns giving you ours, the bandit said with a perverted giggle as the others cheered on. Screw strike 3 strike infinity. Naruto take in a lot of things before boiling over. The teen was repressing the feelings of frustration from losing tea. He battled against Madara and being sent to this world where he had to fight against 4 weird ninjas, Suzume, Inukai and 103 monstrous dogs while almost getting rode by Suzume was slowly pushing him over the edge. Apparently getting hit on by a rather happy bandit that wanted to sodomize him was enough to push the blonde over and make him snap. And snap he did, before the happily grinning huge bandit could even notice it. His head was already rolling off his body spilling blood along the air as man's now lifeless body fell to the ground. What the fuck is wrong with this world? Naruto cried out in frustration as he then began killing all the remaining bandits who stood dumbly in shock when they saw the pretty boy kill their boss. They didn't have a chance. Kamadam bandits, Naruto said shivering as he flicked the blood off his ninjutsu before sheathing it. Somehow he felt that he really needed that. That was brutal nin. They wanted to arm me, the shinobi said as he looked towards the source of the voice. Sitting and kicking her legs on top of a nearby tree wearing her ever then as kimono was none other than the cat-like Kunoichi Suzume. So mind telling me why you're following me? I just want to come with you on your adventure nin. It's been a while since I've traveled Japan, the girl answered with a rather cheerful tone. Really, are you sure it's not because Inukai ordered you to look after me? Naruto asked as he looked at the blue-haired girl and studied her. Sealed hatred mode or not, he was quite good at reading people, not as good as the Yamanakas but still good enough. Nope, she said, sensing no lies in her simple words. Naruto then asked one more question. Then why are you following me? Because I'm bored and you're interesting nin, the girl said as she jumped off her tree flipping through the air before landing just right next to the Namikaze. Really, that's it? He asked as he just looked at the girl with a rather confused expression. Yep. Naruto closed his eyes and paused for a moment to think of the situation. At one hand, the girl tried to kill her before trying to arm him, and there was still an off chance that she might try again. On the other hand, he knew nothing about the geography of this place called Japan aside from the map Inukai gave him. It would really be useful to have someone who knows the land to come along with him. The pros just outweighed the cons on this one since he really needed someone to show him around. Okay, you can come, he told the blue-haired girl before he started his walking once more. Preferably away from the pile of corpses near him. So where are you going? Suzume asked. I looked at the map earlier, and I'm thinking of visiting Awari, Macawa, Hyo, Texas, and this place called Miko Institute. Mohohoho, so you already had everything planned out nin. Yep, but which place do you think I should go first? He asked the Kunoichi. Mohoho, there's really nothing to see in eyes, so I think you should go to Awari first, the girl replied. Okay then, Naruto said as he looked at Suzume. So which way is Awari? If you continue walking here we'll reach a small village. From there I can point you to where Awari is. Suzume replied as she tossed her fists in the air before folding them in the back of her head as she walked. The two walked silently for about 5 minutes before the Suzume decided to break the ice. Naruto almost face-faulted but stopped himself just in time. The blonde shinobi from another world just let out a rather silent groan as he rubbed his temples. What the hell is wrong with this world? He whispered out as he slowly walked towards the nearest village, his newest companion walking just a few steps behind him. This day would mark the day that will forever change the history of the warring states. The day the Naruto Namikaze with his new companion Suzume began his journey around Japan. May Kami have mercy on Japan. Naruto in Japan end. So yeah, this is the result of me cracking under pressure, ha. Now I have to go back to write my papers. Fuck TT. On and please review right here. IV. Journey through Japan. Hyo and Awari. Naruto in Japan. Disclaimer. I own nothing. An Ma hyper weapon will pierce the heavens. Guess who will trigger a lot of flags during this chapter? Guess who? Ha. I am still partially Insa. Nay, that is questioning if I had a tiny bit of sanity in the first place. Chapter Will was supposed to divide it in 3 parts but decide to cut it down in 2 because it was getting too long. Not much action scenes on this one. The next one though I guarantee would be more action-packed. So for now enjoy this chapter of Naruto in Japan. And vote in the POLL. And since I didn't really make it clear he poll is for which ones will be focused on the more. That being said, Naruto will get a chance to be with all the girls of Japan, but the one who are going to be his main girls is to be decided by that poll. Unbetted. Tags. Oh, violence. Naruto in Japan story starts. Chapter 2. Journey Through Japan Part 1. Aside from that, he also found out that people from this world was rather gun-ho. No matter how much he tried to solve things peacefully, bandits, vagrants, warriors, and even a few ninjas that he encountered almost always ended up dead because they do not listen to reason. It also disturbed him to no end when he found out that people here were quite okay with killing and raping. He swore that if he ever met someone stupid enough to do that in front of him that he would kick the guy's ass. That moment somewhere in the continent a brown-haired warrior stopped thrusting into his pink-haired servant and sneezed. Must be some hot girl talking about me, the man said before returning tea. Oh, plow the girl who kept moaning with each thrust. It was still a long way to go before that man would arrive in Japan and cause hell. Oh, and Naruto also found out that his companion, despite being a Unoichi that has apparently already traversed the whole land before, was, for a lack of a better term, was directionally challenged, so instead of arriving to Awari like he intended, the blonde shinobi found himself en route to Kyo instead. Kyo. Sengoku Rance Ost. In the piazza. The blonde shinobi walked down the streets of the city of Kyo, noting that the city is not really that much different with the ones in the elemental nations. The houses were all made of wood. There were weapon shops, flower shops, clothing store, and even culture itself was basically the same except tone down on the ninja stuff and turn up the samurai stuff. I said I'm sorry Nin. Naruto heard the rather bubbly Suzume apologized for what seemed like the 100th time the past hour. No problem, it doesn't really matter where, if it's Kyo or Awari, as long as we see as much of Japan as possible then it will be okay. Mohaho. Fishcake, yeah. Can we go eat now? The blonde's sweat dropped. That was another thing he discovered through his travels. His companion had an appetite that rivals his. He didn't really have a problem with it, but the sack of gold he received from Inukai on the other hand was already running out. But seeing as he was a bit hungry himself, Naruto couldn't help but give in to the girl's request. Where would you like to eat then? The kunoichi placed a finger on her chin and was in thought for a few seconds before pointing at a nearby establishment. How about that restaurant Nin? Naruto followed the trail her finger pointed into, his eyes landing on a stand-like restaurant. Ramen the shinobi said bitterly, closing his eyes as he remembered the old stand back in Konaha. A small stand covered in black flames because of the attack of the Uchiha. It really was regret. Table that Tsuki and Ayame decided to stay in Konaha until the end despite his pleas. They were burned to death by black flames. He didn't even have time to cry for their deaths. Is there something wrong, Fishcake? Suzume asked, snapping Naruto out of his thoughts. The shinobi from Konaha opened his eyes. No, it's nothing. He shook his head before smiling. Come on, I'm starving, let's go eat, Suzume. Naruto told her as he walked towards the stand. Suzume stood still for a moment watching the shinobi's back. She's been traveling for the teen for a while now and she was quite certain that she had a good grasp on his personality. He was fun, happy-go-lucky when he wanted to, sarcastic and snide if needed, calm and stoic when the situation demands it, but from time to time there were moments he showed loneliness and sadness unfitting for one his age. She always tried asking him what was bothering him, but like the previous conversation he often avoided giving her a concrete answer. She knew she shouldn't pry too much and he'll tell her when he was ready, but she just couldn't help but worry about the shinobi. Why she worried about him so much she didn't know. Was it because she found the teen interesting? Was it because she was the first one she faced that she failed to defeat? She didn't really know why, but the kunoichi just felt like she didn't want to see him sad. Suzume. The teen shinobi called out, snapping the kunoichi from her own thoughts. Hi, so are you going to eat or am I going to have to eat your share? The teen said smiling as he sat down on the stand before ordering a miso ramen. Ah okay nin nin tilde. She ran towards him and sat on a vacant sit beside Naruto. A curry ramen please tilde. Hi. The chef from the opposite side of the counter said as he began preparing the ninja's ramen. In a matter of minutes he set the orders for the two trained killers. Itadakimasu, the two said in unison as they began eating their ramen. This is good, Naruto said in between his slurps of ramen. One more, he added as the chef behind the counter smiled and started to prepare another order for the blonde. It is good nin nin, Suzume said happily as Naruto nodded to her. Great minds really do think alike. As Naruto was busy eating the first ramen he had for a long time, the former Konaha nin failed to notice a rather beautiful woman with milky white skin and long black hair tied into a ponytail by a hair ornament. She has dark orange eyes that matched her orange Naga Kamishimo Katajinu, which was partnered up with white Hakama. She had the all bearing of both a noble and a warrior. One kitsune ramen please, the girl ordered. Hi just wait for a moment Yamamoto-sama, the chef replied as he began cooking the woman's order. If the blonde really was paying attention he would have noticed the use of the sama suffix, but then again he was too busy savoring his ramen. That and he never really cared that much of social status. Kitsune raw, men good choice, Naruto said as he finished his first bowl of ramen. Ah, thank you, the girl said slightly shocked that the foreigner beside her decided to start up a conversation. She looked at the blue eyes. Blonde shinobi before replying. I have not seen you around here, are you perhaps a new citizen of Kyo? Nope, just a traveler and decided to just stop by here with my friend here to grab a bite. Naruto pointed a finger at Suzume who was already eating her second bowl of ramen. You have chosen a bad time to travel foreigner-san, Naruto. Huh, my name is Naruto, he introduced himself as the chef placed his second order of ramen in front of him. The girl let out a small smile. Isoroku, she introduced herself as the chef placed her own order of ramen into the table. As I was saying, you've chosen quite a bad time to be traveling in Japan. She took her chopsticks and started eating her ramen. Why is that? Naruto asked as he too began eating his chopsticks. It's rather chow tick right now, the girl said eating the fried tofu that came with her ramen first before continuing. There has been unrest in various neighboring countries. Awari is peaceful, but there has been rumors about unrest within their ranks as well as an evident civil war in its future. Macawa was conquered a few months ago by Yukai. The three great houses of Uesugi, Huju, and Takeda keep warring on the east. The west is at war because of the Mori. Bandit activities have been high lately along with the appearance of plenty of ogres all over Japan. She said quite a lot of stuff before resuming her meal. I've noticed heck lot of bandits in the area, but never did see any of those ogres that you've said. Naruto took a few noodles and ate it, ordering another bowl as he did so. So Ms. Isoroku, if you were to recommend me where to go next in my journey in this warring states, where would you tell me to go? Truthfully, I'll tell you to go back to your country just so you'll be safe, but if you persist on traveling. She took a sip of the broth of her ramen. Awari would be a safe choice. Thanks for the recommendation, Naruto said smiling, grateful for the information that the girl gave him. Making a mental note, Naruto decided to go to Awari first, then Macawa. That aside, he really needs to consider starting up a spy network like his old sensei Jiraiya made long ago. He looked at the woman sitting beside him. Should he try to start the network by recruiting her? He internally shook his head. No, she's already been helpful, no need to drag her into one of his schemes. No problem, Naruto-san, the girl told him as she calmly ordered another bowl of ramen for herself. Internally though, the girl was actually curious about the foreigner beside her. It wasn't often that someone from another part of the continent went to Japan. The furthest they often went was somewhere in Shimazu, and not many of them traveled to Kyo. Are those whisker marks? She thought. Another miso ramen please? Naruto asked as the chef smiled and prepared a new bowl for him. Another curry ramen for me, the blonde's kunoichi companion told the chef. Naruto's head titled to the kunoichi. Hey, what bowl number is that? The second one. Bull, how many? Tehehehe tilde 8 nin nin. What? Naruto said, jumping from his seat, shocking both Isoroku and Suzume. Do you know how much money we have left? A lot, nin. We had enough for like 7, that's why I was holding back from eating. Ah. My bad, the kunoichi said, scratching the back of her head as he did so. Oh crap, we're out of money, Naruto said, opening his small bag that was supposed to be filled by gold. Oh no, Suzume cried out, placing both hands on her cheeks. What do we do? What do we do? It's been nice knowing you, fish. Cake, nin, the kunoichi said as she stood up from her seat, turned around and took a few steps to exit the stand. Oh, you're not leaving me to pay for your bill. We will suffer together through all of this. The blue eyes shinobi cried out as he grabbed the kunoichi from her collar and tried to pull her back into the shop. No, I don't want to wash dishes to pay for our meal, nin. We have no choice, Naruto said before hearing the sound of chuckling coming from the woman who was still eating her kitsune ramen. You two are quite funny, she said as she ate another piece of fried tofu. Nt worry, I'll pay for your meal, she said. Ah, thank you, my savior, nin, Suzume cried out as she glomped Isoroku. No problem, the woman calmly said. Thank you very much, Naruto said as he sat in his stool once again. Is there any way for me to repay you? You could tell me about Zeth and Lisa's. Lisa's. Oh, do you not know of them? I assumed you were a foreigner from the western lands, am I perhaps wrong? She asked. Ha, well, I came from really far away. Not really sure where Zeth or Lisa's is, he said, earning a dumbfounded look from both Isoroku and Suzume, who though he was a foreigner from those lands as well. So from Hellman. Before Naruto could even answer the woman's question, his eyes narrowed as he felt several people enter the stand. Oh look boys, it's Yamamoto. A man wearing a white bandana across his head said to his companions as they snickered. Isoroku went silent as she looked down on the floor. He to see the former princess of the Yamamoto clan eating among us feeble peasants. Hey. Naruto decided to stay quiet, but his left hand was slowly inching towards his ninjutsu until he felt a hand holding back his own. He looked to his side, and found that Isoroku was holding his hand, shaking her head as he did so. Oh, who do we have here? A foreigner, the rather unruly man said as he looked at the blonde shinobi. Don't you know we don't like your kind here in Japan? Go back to the west, you Yankee. He swore to Kami if Isoroku wasn't stopping him he would have already cut down the man. The man looked at Isoroku. You have orders. E-man said as he pulled out a scroll from his pocket and opened it. From the great Lord Choshin. He proclaimed proudly before shifting his tone to a rather amused one. Isoroku, you ugly woman, I ordered you to obtain the Ryugu sword Urashimaru rumored to be in the Kachikachi cave. You are to obtain this sword lest you want your clan to end with you. Now I know I should be entrusting you to do is mission without taking anyone from my army with you. I was supposed to make a competent man do this, but I am willing to give you a chance to prove yourself worthy of becoming a vassal under my greatness. Do not disappoint me, Isoroku. You heard the boss. Now get to work, woman, the man said, looking at Isoroku with a hint of disgust before leaving. What was that about? Naruto said as he looked at Isoroku. That man was the loyal messenger of Ashikaga Choshin, current head of the Ashikaga, the leader of Kyo, she said, informing the blonde shinobi. So, I could have sliced him in half. I approach. See at your concern, but I must ask you not to cause trouble. The woman then pulled out a small bag filled with coins and placed it on the counter. Payment for our meal, Isoroku told the chef, who was frowning. It was nice meeting you too, Isoroku added before leaving the stand. Naruto silently watched the girl leave. She's from the Yamamoto clan, he heard from Suzume. And their clan was destroyed by the Ashikaga house. She's probably one of the few remaining members of the clan. What the girl said is true, the ramen chef said, getting Naruto and Suzume's attention. The man shook his head. Yamamoto Dono has always been loyal and strong-willed. Why she's loyal to the Ashikaga house of all people I do not know. Hostage perhaps, nin. Who knows, the ramen chef said. Is she planning on going to that dungeon alone? Most likely. Naruto sighed. Out of principle he couldn't just let this whole event pass by without doing something about it. Let's go, Suzume, he said. Getty. ing up from his seat before leaving the stand. Where are we going? The kunoichi asked as she followed Naruto. We're going to help her out. Why? Because she paid for our meal and I have a bleeding heart. Naruto in Japan. The sun was at its zenith as it shone brightly upon those in the city of Kyo. In front the gates of Kyo stood none other than Yamamoto Isoroku. I'm ready, Isoroku said as she fitted herself with a quiver full of arrows along with her bow on her back and a tied katana to her waist. She was ready to traverse the dungeon on her own, geared for a long battle that is to come. Isoroku started walking towards the gates. Are you really going through this on your own? She heard, making her head snap towards the very same teen who she met earlier in the ramen bar. He was leaning beside the gates, hand crossed over his chest as his blue eyes looked at her. Yes, there is no way to appease them without me attaining the blade, she sighed sadly. I need to do this. Why do you wish for your lord's favor? No, this is not for me, it is. You wouldn't understand, she said as she passed by the teen and walked out of the very gates. She heard him sigh. Okay, then point the way. What? The woman said in shock as she stopped on her tracks and immediately looked at the teen. I said point the way. Why? You paid for our ramen, so we're just paying you back. Considered this as repaying our debt. Why? The woman asked once more. You do not need to go with me. I do not want to endanger you or your friend. This place will be very dangerous. All the more reason to come with you, Naruto said as he pushed himself off the gates and walked towards Isoroku. So point the way, Naruto said as he crossed his hands behind his head and started walking beside the still shocked Isoroku. You are quite foolish, the girl said, letting out a small smile as she walked beside the blonde shinobi. I know, you're not the first one to tell me that. So where is your companion? The girl asked curiously. I'm here nin tilde, the kunoichi said, appearing beside Isoroku. Naruto didn't know if she just hid it well or she wasn't really surprised, but the girl just nodded, acknowledging the kunoichi's presence. Hey Suzume, do you know where the Kachikachi dungeon is? Yes, I'll lead the way nin. So you are a ninja? Isoroku asked. Yep tilde. And you Naruto-san? I'm a ninja as well. Yamamoto was silent for a moment. You can't be ninja. You stand out too much, she said as the three walked towards the dungeon. For some reason Naruto got the feeling that this was going to be a long day. Kachikachi Dungeon. Sengoku Rance Ost. Dungeon. The group made their way to the dungeon in record time, something that actually surprised the blonde shinobi since he was expecting the group to get lost because of Suzume. The dungeon itself resembled a rather plain cave, both moist, dark, and infested the hell out of monsters. Yamamoto sweeping fire. Isoroku shouted out as she fully fired a volley of arrows that struck rows upon rows of purple squids with legs, cleverly named squidmen, and green-headed mages called magemen. Whoever named these things was either lazy or retarded. Somewhere beyond the proverbial wall with the number 4 labeled on it, a man in Japan sneezed as he steadily made plans for the 9th game of a series of eroge. You're awesome with a bow. Those shots were pretty accurate despite it being dark in this cave, Naruto praised as he struck down 2 cylindrical-like creatures with 3 big holes of eyes and mouth. Hannies they were called, and the Y were notoriously easy to kill as one swipe of his blade smashed the clay-like creatures into pieces. You're a great shot. Thank you, the girl said with a slight blush in her cheek. Being a member of a house where she was constantly looked down upon for being a member of the Yamamoto clan as well as being a woman, she rarely received praise for her skills with the bow. You're good with the sword as well. Are you perhaps a samurai or one of those knights from the continent? No. I told you before, ninja. I still do not know why you insist to call yourself a ninja when you do not fight like one. I am a ninja. Naruto screamed out, a bit frustrated since the whole trip to the dungeon was spent by he and Isoroku arguing about his status as a ninja, with the latter constantly disregarding his words. You're too loud. A ninja is more like her, Isoroku said, pointing at Suzume, who was making use of the shadows of the cave to take out some nearby squid men and hannies by skewering them with her shurikens. I'm special. You're a samurai. I'm using a ninja too. You're using a katana. You know what you want to see ninja stuff? Naruto asked Isoroku, who curiously nodded in response. Fine, I'll show you ninja. Naruto placed his hands together and began going through some hand seals, Fuden. Datopa, Naruto shouted out, sending a wind of pressurized blade to a nearby squee. D-Man, sending it flying to the air until it landed and was impaled at a spike of earth in the cave. See, ninjutsu, Naruto said proudly to a nodding Isoroku. Impressive, Naruto-san, you keep surprising me with your skills. Naruto puffed out his chest in pride. I did not expect you to be knowledgeable in the mystic arts as well. Naruto deflated as Isoroku closed her eyes and nodded, as expected from a foreigner. I have heard of the so-called magicians and magical arts of the continent, but I have never seen it firsthand. Thank you for this new experience, Naruto-san. Naruto let out an unintel. Gibble grunt as tick marks began appearing on his head. I'm a ninja, he repeated. Oh, Isoroku said as she bopped her fist in an open palm. Is ninja some code for magical swordsmen from the continent? If so, Naruto-san, here in Japan ninjas are different. They are warriors who prefer to hide in the shadows to stalk their prey. Quote, I know that because I'm a ninja. He shouted out, alerting nearby monsters to the group's presence. Fishcake. Don't shout too loudly, you're attracting too much monsters, nin nin. Suzume scolded Naruto from her hiding place while trying so hard not to laugh. She found the interaction between the archer and her fellow shinobi highly funny and entertaining. But, yes, Naruto-san, you are attracting too much attention from the monsters, certainly unbefitting of one called a ninja of Japan. At this point Naruto just rolled his eyes as he walked ahead of the group. Sorry for standing out too much, he said, sighing as he unsheathed his ninjutsu and slashed a few nearby hanis into pieces. For some reason destroying those monsters felt absolutely relaxing right now. Naruto in Japan. Iagiri. Naruto shouted out the name of his attack as he decapitated the last of 4 gigantic worms. Apparently getting constantly joked by Isoroku, who didn't really mean it, and Suzume, who was just asking for it. Whether or not he was a legitimate ninja, since he did not use kunais, shurikens, and tantos. Naruto at one point during their teasing, even whipped out a few kunais that were wrapped in explosion tags, and threw them with the accuracy befitting a highly skilled ninja at a few enemies. Too bad. The explosions that occurred after hitting their targets made Isoroku chalk it up as is another kind of Western-based magic attack. Brutal as usual, nin nin, Suzume said in surprise as she sheathed her tanto. I never expected foreign magical knights to be so fierce and strong, Isoroku added with a slight blush in her face. Throughout the entire dungeon she had really grown impressed at the skills the teen showed. He was good with the sword, and those magical attacks that he performed were quite impressive. He even protected her a few times from the monsters the dungeon while constantly complimenting her own skills with the bow and her katana. If he was not a foreigner, she would have already considered the teen as a perfect candidate as a husband to help her rebuild her clan. Ninja, Naruto muttered under his breath as he walked over the corpse of the dead caterpillar. The shinobi slowly made his way towards 2 well-decorated golden doors that appeared in the end of the dungeon. Thinking that the sword was probably there, Naruto extended his leg and kicked the door open before entering through it. What is this place? Naruto asked as he entered the gigantic golden doors and was led into a gigantic underground dome filled with various aquatic life forms. The walls of the dome themselves were transparent, revealing to the blonde that the outside was filled with water. I swear to God, we were in a cave just a moment ago. How the hell did we get in here? I don't know, nin nin, Suzume answered as she too marveled at the beautiful sight that the place had to offer. A wizard did it, Isoroku asked as she looked around the area. Welcome to Arcade Dragon Palace. A hani appeared out of nowhere and screamed out, surprising all the 3 warriors. Taha. The hani didn't even finish what it was going to say before it found a kunai wrapped in explosive tags stuck on its forehead. What t? Boom. Whoops, my hand slipped, Naruto said innocently, totally not meaning to destroy the hani. Nope, he didn't mean it. It wasn't like he found that destroying the things were highly the rootic, nope, not at all. Welcome to Arcade Dragon Palace. Another hani appeared out of nowhere and greeted the 3. From the side of his vision, Naruto actually saw a few other hanis picking up the charred remains of the previous one. An arcade, nin nin. Yup. What's an arcade? Naruto asked. It's an establishment where one plays games, Naruto-san, Isoroku explained. It is quite similar to stands during festivals, she added to make it clear to Naruto, who she found was rather clueless about the customs and common knowledge of their nation. She did find it weird at first but thought it was probably because he was a foreigner from the continent. Oh, and what is an arcade doing in a place like this? Naruto asked the Hani while his hand inched closer and closer to another kunai. Otahime-sama told me to say this, to you, the Hani pointed at. Me, who wishes to attain the Ryugu sword Orochimaru, you must succeed in passing her test before she deems you worthy of the blade. Naruto nodded. He just really wanted to get this over with, then. Let's do this. Tell me what I need to do, Datbeo. Hi, I will, but I must ask you to come with me first and leave your companions here, the Hani said as he pointed at another part of the area that was covered by pink curtains. Why can we not help him in this trial? Isoroku asked, not wanting the team to carrying all the burden into attaining the blade that she needed to present her liege. Otahime-sama's trial or only one-on-one, the Hani said. Whatever, let's get this over with before I smash you into pieces. What? The Hani asked, looking at Naruto. I said let's get this over with before I run out of patience, Naruto said as he walked towards the pink curtains. However, before going to the other side he looked back at a worried-looking Isoroku. Don't worry, I'll get the sword for you no matter what the cost. Consider that a promise of a lifetime, Datbeo, Naruto told Isoroku before going inside the curtains. If he looked back at even one point he would have seen a massive blush on the archer's face. What an honorable person, Isoroku whispered out so no one can hear. Too bad a certain cat like Kunoichi heard her. Mohohoho Fishcake-san is such a lady key. Lur nin nin, the Kunoichi said as she looked at Isoroku. Threesomes aren't that bad, fufufufu tilde, she thought. Play Sengoku Rance Ost. Ai ya. What did you say I have to do? The archer and the ninja. I heard Naruto scream out from the other side of the pink curtains. You have to, the Hani said in an equally loud voice before the sound of something getting smashed echoed throughout the air. You want me to do what to you? They heard Naruto ask to someone who the two assumed was Otahime. I want you to spill all over me. The two didn't hear what the feminine voice asked the blonde she. Nobidu, as a few parts were probably said in a low and almost inaudible tone. Fuck number. He tilde, then no sword for you tilde. For fuck's sake, what the hell is wrong with this world? They heard Naruto shout out. Fuck it. I promised her to get the sword, so I'll do it. Good. Let the game begin. There was a short moment of silence before the loud sound of rapid thumping echoed throughout the room. What is that? Isoroku curiously asked. I'm not sure, nin nin. My how huge, but can its size back it up though? They heard the girl ask. Ahan tilde. The girl from behind the curtain squealed out. That's one ha 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 tilde. You'll need a lot more than to kya tilde. Eric. The two heard Naruto grunt out. Suzume was already grinning as she heard the sound. It was a rather familiar sound that she was familiar of. Isoroku on the other hand had no idea what the sound was and came to a conclusion that Naruto was attacked or injured by the girl behind the curtains. You'll need more of this to beat me tilde. You know what, try this on. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Naruto shouted out from behind the curtains. The sounds of the rapid thumping continued for a few seconds before several loud grunts cower. Tessie of the blonde shinobi echoed through the room. Kya tilde so much tilde. So many tilde, ah tilde more please, more tilde, cover me with some more. Ah tilde, it tastes so good tilde, the girl said before the sounds of loud poofing muffled her moans. Argai. Naruto shouted out once more. Naruto-san. Isoroku cried out in worry as she ran towards the curtains. Suzume just kept grinning as she followed the archer. Naruto-san, are you okya tilde? Isoroku squealed out, eyes widening the size of dinner plates when she witnessed what exactly was happening on the other side of the curtains. There was a naked crimson-haired and pale-skinned woman lying sprawled on a bed with white liquid covering her whole body. 2 meters away from the woman standing in front of a white line was none other than Naruto, who was lightly panting. Of course, what caught the archer's attention was the 9-inch hyper weapon hanging out from the blonde shinobi's trousers. Thud. Naruto heard before, tilting his head toward the direction of the sound to see an unconscious Isoroku that had a small amount of blood trailing down her nose and a grinning Suzume who was eyeing his hyper weapon. 10 seconds left. Fuck. Naruto shouted out as he did the fired off his hyper weapon and covered the red-haired in even more liquid than she already was. Congratulations Tilda, you beat the game. The woman saw it standing up as the sticky white fluid began trailing down her white skin. Here, the woman said as she tossed a sheathed katana at the blonde shinobi who was pulling up his pants. Naruto easily GHT the katana and strapped it on his back before walking towards the unconscious Isoroku and grabbing her bridle style. He looked at Suzume. We shall never talk about this, Suzume, never. Is that clear? He asked, releasing killing intent as he did so. Too soon, Nin. Yes, Suzume, too soon. Ugh, Tilda. Naruto heard from Isoroku, who was slowly waking up in his arms. Oh, you're awake, Isoroku-san. Ah, what happened? The girl asked with a light blush on her face as she felt the teen's warm arms around her. You fainted shortly after getting inside the room. You were really exhausted after fighting those caterpillars, so it was not surprised that you were out after it. That's strange, I swear I saw. The girl blushed even harder and looked away from Naruto. Saw what? Nothing probably. Just a strange dream. She wiggled uncomfortably. Naruto-san, would you mind letting me down? Ah, sorry about that, Naruto said as he gently put her down. There we go. Thank you, Naruto-san. Don't thank me yet. Naruto unstrapped the sword on his back. Here, he said, tossing the sheathed blade at Isoroku. The archer caught it, eyes widening as she looked at the place. Is this the Ryugu sword Orochimaru? Quote, yep. Why does it smell funny? Isoroku asked as she took a few sniffs at the sword. Don't ask. Just don't. Naruto said as he shook his head. Let's just get out of here, Naruto asked as he walked towards the exit. He really hoped that their group will encounter some Hannies on the way out. He really needed to vent. Outside Kachikachi dungeon, Naruto, Suzume, and Isoroku stood outside the dungeon. By then the sun was already slowly setting as the dim orange light replaced the normally white light blue sky. It was already late in the afternoon, but Isoroku knew it would have her even longer if not for Naruto and Suzume helping her out. Thank you for this, Naruto-san, Isoroku said as she gestured to the katana firmly tied to her side. Know that I am in your debt, the GIRL added before saying her thanks to Suzume as well. No need to thank me. This is just me paying you back for treating me and Suzume here to some ramen. But I must insist. You know what? Yes, you owe me one. And with that, I want you to admit that I'm a ninja. Sorry, Naruto-san, but you cannot force me to admit something I do not believe in, Isoroku replied, making the blonde sigh and close his eyes as he visibly deflated. You know what, I don't care anymore. Isoroku smiled. Although I do believe that is just right for me to give you my thanks. The woman took a few light steps, closing in on Naruto, who she gently kissed on the cheek. Thank you, Naruto, the woman said with a light shade of pink marred on her face before she turned around and ran back towards the direction of Kyo, leaving behind a blushing wide-eyed Naruto and a snickering Suzume. Mohohoho, fishcake is such a lady killer, nin. Troublesome woman, Naruto muttered out, smiling as he touched his cheek while watching Isoroku's figure disappear within the orange sky of the horizon. The two did know at the time, but their next meeting it would not be as friends or allies but rather as enemies. Naruto in Japan. It has been a few days since Naruto and Suzume's impromptu side trip to Kyo and Kachikachi dungeon, and finally the two arrived in their original destination, Awari, Sengoku Rance Ost, in the piazza. It was early in the afternoon. The sun was just high in the air, covered by the light fluffy clouds of the sky. The birds were chirping, Suzume was whistling, and even Naruto had a small smile on his face. Why, you may ask? Well, because they have not encountered any monsters or bandits since they left Kyo, and that in itself was enough to cheer up the blonde shinobi. I'm hungry, nin tilde. Mohohoho, I don't know hat you're saying. Yeah, whatever, Naruto said while rolling his eyes. But you know from what I've heard about this place from Isoroku. It's not really that peaceful. I've seen a few people along the roads fighting. Might be because of the different house or members of Oda trying to usurp Nobunaga from his power, nin. If that's so, then a coup is imminent. He cupped his chin. So why are they trying to usurp him in the first place? Is he a terrible leader? Nope. He's just too peaceful and pacifistic. Not really an attitude that the people wishes for a leader during wartime. You forgot to add nin in the end. Ah, thank you, nin. The girl nodded her head, and if I remember correctly the country's motto is. Let me guess it's as long as Kuhime is happy everything is fine. Oh, how do you know nin nin? Because of that, Naruto said as he pointed at a nearby board of wood that had the word Awari written on it as well as directions to various places within the state. Ah ha 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 tilde, who is Kohaim anyway? Quote, the ruler of the land Oda Nobunaga's sister, the Kunoichi replied. Gurgle gurgle, I'm hungry nin nin. Gurgle gurgle, Naruto sighed, I'm hungry as well. But I don't see any place where we can eat. Actually there's a nearby dango shop. Huh. Where? This way, the Kunoichi said as she ran prompting the blonde shinobi to follow her. After about 2 miles. Newts of running the two reached a small shop in the side of the road. Dango, Naruto asked as he saw the small Japanese dumpling being served to the customers by a cute little girl with black hair IED with a hair ornament and purple eyes that matched her dark blue kimono. Yep tilde, Suzume said as she sat down on a vacant seat. You can seat here nin nin, the Kunoichi said as she patted the seat next to her. Naruto smiled. The Kunoichi cheerfulness was really rubbing on him. Hi, he said as he sat beside he. Can I get your order? The cute waitress asked as she approached the two ninjas. I'll have 2 orders of Hanami dango and green tea, Suzume told the waitress. I'll take an order of Mitarashi dango no make it 2 and the green tea. Hi just wait for a moment, the girl said as she went back into the store. So after Awari where are we going nin nin? Let's go to Macawa. Okay the nin nin. Ni-san 2 Hanami and 2 Mitarashi, Naruto heard from the girl. Hey Sue, Zoom is there somewhere you'd like to go? Naruto asked. I don't really want to go anywhere tilde. Then why are you traveling with me? I just feel like it nin nin tilde you're a fun person to be with fishcake not boring. Are you going to keep calling me fishcake? You do know it's Naruto and it means maelstrom not fishcake. Nope it's fish cake. Naruto sighed. Okay I'll allow you to call me fishcake but just you okay. Thank you fishcake san tilde. Just a second. This time he heard a male voice from the shop. He assumed was the girl's brother. Here. Thank you Ni-san. Tap tap tap. Light sound. S of footsteps echoed behind the 2 ninjas. Here's your orders. Thank you nin nin, Suzume said as she took a stick of Hanami and started eating. Thank you Ojo-chan, Naruto said as he took his ord. And took a bite out of his Mitarashi dango. This dango is good nin nin. Yeah this tea is great as well, said Naruto after taking a sip of green tea. Can we have some more dangos here nin nin? Hey watch it, we're running on a tight budget here, we're almost out of the gold Inukai gave us. Dango tilde dango tilde dango tilde. I guess we'll go bandit hunting or something for money, Naruto said with an exasp. Orated sigh as he grabbed one of his 2 remaining sticks of dango and took a bite. The dango is really good. Naruto savored it and was distracted by its taste that he almost missed the hand of one Kunoichi making its way to his dango. Growing up Naruto did not have the best of life. He had to literally scr through trash cans to get food before the kind owners of Ichiraku began catering for him. Let it be known when it came to the matters of food to never get in between Naruto and his food. I dare you to take that dango. Suzume asked dumbly before noticing that the blonde's ninjutsu W. As already unsheathed and pointed directly at her chest. Mohahoho. Has Fishcake finally decided me to stab with his sword nin nin? How bold to do it in a public place like this. Should I try to muff? Lemai screams so no one would hear us nin nin. The double entendre was not missed by Naruto. Excuse me, but you shouldn't point your swords to girl. The cute waitress said with a bit of panic in her voice. Sorry about that, Naruto said as he sheathed his ninjutsu. The girl let out a loud puff. Thank you for waiting. Here's more dango. As good as ever, Naruto said after taking a bite out the dango. Nay girl, did you make these? No, my brother made them. Brother, you mean him? Naruto asked while slapping Suzume's hand away from his share of the dango. Damn gluttonous Neko like Kunoichi, before tilting his head towards the man who wearing a rather dirty looking kimono. Yep tilde, interesting, said Naruto as he followed the girl's brother with her eyes. Mohaho, I didn't know Fishcake was interested in men. Is that why you wouldn't go for any of my advances? Naruto's ninjutsu couldn't come out of its scabbard faster, but to his actual surprise Suzume was able to block his blow, albeit a weaker one, with her tanto. Oh, I raised an eyebrow in curiosity. It seems that I have greatly underestimated my companion's ability to adapt and grow stronger. Fufufu, I saw your attack coming a mile away, nin. Ah, please don't fight. The girl said again as she tried to stop the two ninjas from fighting and probably demolishing the shop. Sorry, the two simultaneously said as they sheathed their own weapons. Ko-chan, can I have some dango too? An unimportant man labeled as Customer A asked. Right away, the girl said as she went back inside to the shop. Koha, she has tea. He same name of this country's princess, Naruto said in between his bites off dango. Coincidence, nin. Let's hope so, Naruto said as he continued to observe the girl and her brother from the side of his vision. You two are so lively. Naruto looked to his side and saw a beautiful woman with long black hair that went to her hip and one long bang framing the side of her face. She was wearing traditional Miko clothing following its red and white motif. Ah, thank you. Naruto took a small bow. Sorry if we're bothering you. No, it's okay. I really like you too, you're so lively and cheerful. Ah, it's rude for me to not introduce myself. Tamaguchi Fuka, the girl introduced herself. Naruto Namikaze. Nice meeting you, Naruto said with one of his trademark wide smiles. Suzume nin. Uzume said as she tried to steal a stick of dango from Naruto only for her hand to be slapped away. Ouch tilde, she said as she waved her hand. Boo tilde, stingy tilde. The Miko smiled as she slowly got up from her seat. Nice meeting you too. She gave a light bow, but I must go. Where are you going? Naruto asked, even though he felt that it was none of his business, but for some reason he just felt something weird about the girl. To look for myself, the Miko replied before leaving the stand. Ah, that's Fuka-san. Naruto heard from the cute waitress. She has amnesia, the girl explained. I see. Naruto saw it as he slapped Suzume's hand away once more. Amnesia, huh? The shinobi from Konaha muttered silently as he watched the Miko walk away. His stomach then grumbled. Looking at his and Suzume's small plate of dango. Damn it, Suzume, I had like 3 sticks, why'd you have to eat all the other 12 sticks, Suzume? Here you go, it's on the house, the rather pale-looking man wearing a dirty brown kimono said as he placed another plate of dango beside Naruto. Thank you, Naruto said as he grabbed a stick of dango, only for Suzume to suddenly jump from her seat and take a whole 2 sticks of dango that she quickly devoured. Nuu tilde, Naruto cried out. Man, your girlfriend sure likes dango, the waitress, brother said as he took the now empty plate of dango. She is not my girlfriend. Fufufu fishcake is more of my master tilde. Chokes on dango. What the hell are you saying to people? Ah, to be young again. I remember when my wife was alive, the man said with a light tint of pink in his cheeks. Kami, damn it, another pervert. She is not my girlfriend, nor am I her master. We're only traveling together. Ha ha ha, you boyfriend is a pretty shy fellow. Yeah, he is nin. What are you doing? Oni-chan, the cute waitress named Ko asked. Hey, you can't call me brother when we're working. Ah, what were you supposed to call me? See, come on. I can call you Oni-chan, right? It's war time, and you know have to be careful not to reveal our identities. This is a part of training, Ko. Oh, call me Aniki-chan. Naruto, who was taking a sip of his tea, proceeded on spit-taking before finding himself rolling on the ground laughing his ass off. I can't, it's too embarrassing, and look, she pointed at Naruto, even he thinks it's funny. I won't make dango if you don't call me that. Woo, ah, gulp. Then I'll make the dango. Hold one. No. Your dangos are weapons of mass destructions. They can kill people and if studied correctly can probably exterminate the entire demon race. Oh, the girl said as tears began forming in her eyes. That was until she felt someone pat her on the back. She looked and found that it was the teen who was laughing on the ground just moments ago. I'm sure your brother is just joking. He's right. Sorry for making fun of you. You were just too cute, the pale man said as he patted the girl's head, although I wasn't lying. Gee, at the potency of your weapon-graded dango, he thought. Meanie, The girl puffed out her cheeks, making all in the area at her adorableness. Some even said the word, "Mo." "Ko, why don't you take care of the other customers? I want to talk with this one," he said, eyeing the blonde shinobi. "Suzume, help her out." "Why? I'll give you some more dango if you do." "Roger, nin nin," she said as she disappeared in a puff of smoke. Sengoku Rance asked, a calmly wind repeat until the end. "Welcome to Awari, foreigner-san," the pale man greeted warmly as a slightly cold breeze blew by. "Mhmm. Do you serve some sake here?" asked Naruto, all the goofiness he showed earlier gone. It was now replaced by a rather calm and stoic persona. "Hi," Naruto smiled. "Can you get me a few cups as well of 2 bottle chilled sake?" "Just wait for a while. I will be back with your order," the man said as he went back to the shop. In a matter of a few seconds he came back out carrying 2 bottles of sake. "Thank you," Naruto said as he poured himself some sake in a cup and took a sip. "This is high-grade sake," he said as he looked at the pale man who was now sitting beside him. "I thought it would be appropriate for our discussion. Since I am sure you wanted to ask me something. So you noticed, huh?" Naruto asked, taking another sip of sake. "You're Oda Nobunaga, aren't you?" he added. He, no, I'm just a humble dango salesman," the man said, smiling. When he opened his eyes he saw one of the small cups of sake he gave the blonde earlier already filled with sake beside him. "No need to lie, Oda-san," he said before using a gentler tone. "I mean no harm to you or your sister, I promise you that," Naruto said as he drank some more sake. "How did you find out?" The now reveled Oda didn't even bother denying it anymore. He opted to just take the cup of sake and take a small sip as well. One was Ko. She was too cute and adorable for a waitress, and that she shared the same name of the princess of Awari, he said as the man nodded in response. "Two was you actually." He paused as he saw the man's eyes widen. "Your movement and poise, no matter how hard you tried to do it, even doing plain and moon Dane tasks, you held the elegance befitting a noble and a warrior. A warrior who has probably won too many battlefields, if I may add," Naruto said, smirking as the man beside him deflated and sighed. "The third one? Oh, that's the easiest one. It's the 200 ninjas secretly protecting this place." "Ah." Nobunaga palmed his face as he took another sip from his cup of sake. "I told them not to send anyone to guard us." "Overprotective strategist?" Naruto asked, taking a sip from his cup of sake as well. "Yep, overprotective strategist. You're quite bright, aren't you?" Nobunaga asked. "Not really. I only know what I know." "Your eyes betray your words, young one," the leader of the Oda house said with a sagely tone. "Why does someone as young as you look so tired?" "Because I've seen too much of war, Nobunaga-san." "I see," the man said as he looked down on his cup of sake. "Far too much," he heard the teen whisper. "Then is there anything you wish to do for the situation at hand?" "No," Bunaga asked curiously as he refilled both his and the teen's cup with sake. "Japan is in the midst of a war with each state. Eventually Japan will burn itself to the ground." He took his cup and took a sip. "So tell foreigner-san, what do you wish to do about it?" "My name is Naruto," he introduced as he took a sip of his own sake. "I wish for peace." He then looked at Suzume, who was helping out Ko from the side of his vision. "That is why I'm traveling around Japan right now, Nobunaga-san. I wasn't to see how bad this war is." "Then what?" "Then I'll make my choice." "What do you mean?" There or not get myself involved in this war." "You sound pretty confident, Naruto-san. One man, no matter how people view him as small, weak, and insignificant, can be the key piece to lead to a great change." He took a sip of sake. "I'm not confident, Nobunaga-san, but I do know that I can make a change." "You really are quite knowledgeable for someone your age. Some of us were forced to grow up faster than others," Naruto said as he remembered a young boy wearing an orange jumpsuit screaming about becoming a Hokage. He smiled sadly. "The boy never did become a Hokage. Do you wish to make a change?" Nobunaga asked. "Hi, you know, I've been looking for someone to take my place and rule over Awari." He took a sip of his sake, ignoring the shocked look on the blonde's face. "You see, truth be told, I am quite sick. I will probably die soon." He looked at Naruto. "Those who want to conquer other countries can go ahead. I'm not interested." He smiled sadly. "I just wish for peace as well, Naruto-san." But even I know that Awari will truly never be in peace if Japan is not unified. He deflated, but I don't really want to take over too many countries since it's too much of a bother. Naruto drank more from his cup. Nobunaga-san. Know that another has offered me the same thing. Another has asked me to rule over their domain and like him I will give you the same answer. Nobunaga-san. He laced his cup down on his side as he faced the pale-skinned ruler of Awari. I'll tell you my answer after I finish my travels. Nobunaga closed his eyes and was in deep thought for a few seconds before smiling and opening them. That will be fine, Naruto-san. Naruto smiled back. Thank you for the meal, he said as he stood up, placing a small amount of golden coins in the table as he did so. Suzume, he called out. What is it, Nin? We're leaving. What? But my dango. I'll get you some more later, but it's time to go for now. He looked back at Nobunaga. It was nice meeting you, Nobunaga-san. It was a pleasure as well, Naruto-san, the man replied while the two ninjas slowly left the shop. Just as when their conversation started, a gentle wind once again blew in the air. Naruto, Oni-chan, what did you two talk about? Kuhime asked as she approached her brother. Pat. Nobunaga patted the girl's head. We were just talking about the future. What about the future? Quote, who knows, he said as he recalled the teen's features. It was really sad to see someone at the age of 18 or 19 to have that look in their eyes. He then looked at Ko and imagined her as an adult with the same jaded eyes. He shook his head, not wanting to think about his pure and innocent sister to ending up like that. Ko-chan, don't ever change, okay? The man asked as he patted her head. What do you mean, Oni-chan? The man didn't answer and just kept patting the girl's head. Meanwhile, why did we have to leave Fishcake? I've seen enough of Awari. Really? We haven't even been in the city itself, Nin. Trust me, I have a good idea of how Awari. It's probably a kind and peaceful place. Whatever you say. So we're going to Macawa now. Yep. Naruto said as he crossed his hands behind his head and walked towards the general direction of Macawa. The blonde momentarily stopped walking as he felt the gentle wind blow at his back once more. Hey Suzume, the blonde called out. Hi Fishcake, do you think this world would be peaceful one day? Naruto asked. Yep, the girl responded with her usual cheerfulness. Oh, why do you think so? Because there are PLE like you in this world, Nin, the kunoichi said before adding, I don't really know why Nin, but I know that you can bring peace to Japan. The kunoichi replied with the ever-present smile on her face. Naruto smiled as he remembered the various people who he met throughout his life that all wished for peace. Even if some of them were twisted, all of them wished for peace nonetheless. Then, I guess we better hurry then, the shinobi from Konaha said as he placed his hand in his pockets and started running. Why Nin? Suzume asked as she ran behind Naruto. Because peace won't come any sooner if we just walk around slowly here, he answered, looking back at Suzume with a bright and gentle smile on his face. The wind blew once again as the sun, now in its zenith, shined down upon the teen. He was wearing the same smile that gave hope to all those that fought in the war back in his homeland, a smile that shined even in the grimmest of situations. You're really interesting, Nin. Suzume told her fellow ninja as she felt a small tug in her chest. The kunoichi's eyes widened as she looked at the back, as this. She thought as she placed a hand over her heart and felt it beating rapidly. The girl shook her head. No, I can't, not now, not when. Her thoughts trailed off as her eyes gazed on the shinobi's back. It wouldn't be until later on until the shinobi will learn of his companion's feelings for him. It would even be later on before he finds out about the burden that the girl carries. But for now the smiling blonde-haired shinobi had only one thought in mind. And that was to continue their journey around Japan. Naruto in Japan and was supposed to also cover Macawa, Mamushi, Texas, and Miko Institute, but moved that to the next chapter since it was getting longer than I intended. Do note that Oda Nobunaga really is a chill and somewhat wise person before he was fucked up by Xavier, so I really did see him offering Naruto to rule over Awari as a possibility. Hell, he offered it to Rance on a whim. Whether or not Naruto accepts that or Inakai's offer is to be seen though. This chapter was mainly as said from the top AN to trigger flags, CD, as well as showing a bit more of Naruto's mature side. And Poor hennies. And yep, Naruto shall develop the habit of wanting to smash them into pieces. Just wait for when he finds out they're an entire country of them. Just think of it. The genocide. Character sheet. Naruto. Race. Human, Jinchuriki. Sex. Male. Age. 19. Class. Swordsman, Ninja. Human sacrifice, Sage. Affiliation. Iga. Oda. Suzume. Weapons. Ninjutsu, kunais with explosive tags. Shurikens. Current level. 79. Level limit. 99. Skill levels. Sword Combat 2, Jinchuriki 3, Stealth 2, Ninjutsu 2. Sage Arts 2, Skills. Kage Bunshin, Henge, Iagiri, Shinkuken, Harai Shingiri, Setsuna, Zetsume. Mikazuki no Mai, Rasengan, Udama Rasengan, Fuden, Rasengan, Fuden, Rasenshuriken, Maiden, Fuden, Senenmoto. Signature moves. Iedo, Shuryo, Planetary Rasengan, Bijudama, Fuden, Fujin. Maiden. Shinon. Notes. A teen from another world who hopes to live a new life in the lands of the continent. Thank you for reading. Now please. Review right here. I.V. Journey Through Japan. Macawa. Naruto in Japan. Disclaimer. I owe nothing. And this FIC is my way of coping with stress, since out of all the others the one I'm having the most fun in writing, since you know. It's an eroge X over. This chapter is a bit meh in my honest opinion, so just bear with it please. Side note though, finals are next week and after that it'll be summer, meaning expect 2 or 3 of my series to be updated in a weekly basis. Also, poll for the future harem of Japan is still in place. Do note that I didn't place Akihime in Kurohime. Kurohime because I have plans for her Akihime. Because I really don't see any part of for her in my story aside from being a B**********H, and I never really used her in the story. She just served as +5 satisfaction points for Rance in every playthrough. Tags. O. Violence, OCC unbedded. Naruto in Japan. Story starts. Chapter 3. Journey Through Japan, Macawa. It was night time. The clouds were hanging low this tranquil evening as the moon in the sky, along with the stars, shined brightly down on all the world's inhabitants. Within the walls of the main castle where the Lord of Macawa, the Tanuki yokai Tokugawa Yayasu, resided, the very same light shone dimly upon a narrow path leading deep into the castle. If one were to follow this path, it would lead them to the deepest dungeon of Macawa, where those who have committed the most grievous of crimes or offended the ruler of the land are thrown into. Once there, they either await execution, or are left there to rot until the end of time. In the very same path towards the gallows, walked 4 figures, their features barely seen throughout the darkness that embraced this cold path. Their footstep echoed in the rather silent and desolate path. The silence only lasted for so long until it was broken by one of the shadowed figures. Play Sengoku Rance asked. Bertle man's daily life. Are we there yet? The others did not even respond. Are we there yet? They continued walking as they ignored the man's questions. Are we t? This time he wasn't given a chance to continue his question when the 2 other figures by his side punched him, one in the face, the other in the gut. The man leaned in forward, his hands bound with wooden stocks holding over his stomach. It was at that moment that the moon managed to seep in more of its light into the dark hallway. Spiky blonde hair, cerulean blue eyes, lightly tanned skin that looked pale under the moon, which emanated the figure of none other than the former shinobi of Konaha, Naruto Namikaze. So are we there yet? He asked once more as the 2 men who punched him grunted before resuming their beating by punching the shinobi a few more times all over his body. The punches didn't hurt at all, but he needed to pretend for now. It wasn't the best moment to escape. There will be better opportunities later on. Naruto gritted his teeth as one of the men launched a haymaker that connected to his jaw. You, Naruto groaned out as he knelt on the ground and spat out some blood. Stop. The third figure, which was revealed to be none other than a small tanuki clad in brown samurai-like armor. We don't have time for this. Hurry and drag him to the prison. If we don't hurry, I won't get any tempura. The tanuki said as the men pulled Naruto off the ground and forced him to walk down the path once more. Again their footsteps echoed along the hallway as silence reigned. Yet again the blonde prisoner was the one who decided to break it once more. So really nice day we're having today, right? Naruto asked as he was finally led into a rather dark dungeon. There were various torture devices that varied from the simplest of whips to the most complex of mechanisms that would make ever the most pain-tolerant men flinch with its use. I've seen better though, he thought. Beside him the two rather large muscular bald men that had scars all over their face grunted, while the small tanuki in front of him chose to ignore him. So are we there yet? Naruto asked once more to irritate his captors. Silence, the tanuki said before pointing at one of the empty dungeon cells. Toss him there, the creature ordered, making both men grab Naruto by his shoulders and fling him towards the cell. Off. Your trial and most likely your execution will be tomorrow morning. For now you are to stay here and pray to whatever god you hold close to yourself, foreigner, the tanuki said. Whatever, Naruto replied, rolling his eyes as the men closed the steel doors off the cells. Let's go, the tanuki said as he turned around and left along with the two men. Naruto sighed. Why do I keep getting myself in situations like this, he complained. Oh, a new cellmate, Naruto heard a feminine voice say. Tilting his head to the side, Naruto saw a beautiful Wong, and with porcelain white skin and long light purple hair. She was wearing a short white battle kimono emblazoned with gold cloud-like designs on her shoulders' sides that ended just around her tights. He was also wearing white stockings that went just above her knees along with shoulder and arm guards. Just from her posture of somewhat calm but ready to react at any given threat with a hint of bloodlust mixed in it, Naruto was already sure that there was a good reason this girl was imprisoned here. Shaking his head and putting those thoughts aside for now, the shinobi from Konaha smiled. Yo. The woman smiled and nodded to his simple greeting. They don't often toss just anyone here, the woman said. So what did you do to get yourself thrown into the worst prison in Macawa? The woman asked. Naruto grinned. It's not really the worst if there's someone as beautiful like you in here, he complimented. The perplexed grinned as well. You'd need more than that to get into my pants, foreigner-san. Naruto. My name is Naruto, he introduced himself to the woman. And, well, isn't it common courtesy to introduce yourselves back? Senheim. The girl introduced herself while rolling her eyes. Oh, war princess, Naruto said, smiling. Yep, definitely a warrior, he thought. You got it right. People often mistake the sen for thousand. She chuckled. It's not often that people get my name right the first time. Yes, but I do tend to prove to them that I am deserving of my name. You kick their asses, don't you? Sen smirked before answering. Oh, maliciously. Ha ha ha, they deserve it. I've learned way back since I was a kid to never underestimate a girl. Oh, why's that? Growing up I got my ass handed to me constantly by girls. He let out a sad smile as he recalled all the good memories of the past. Those good old times before the war, those times where all were simpler, little to no bloodshed. How times really have changed. He shook his head as he kept his sad smile. I grew up learning just how strong and fearsome they could be. The woman raised an eyebrow at the man's noticeably sad appearance before deciding to change the rather gloomy mood by letting out a loud chuckle. Ha ha ha. A man admitting the strength of a woman. It's not often you see that happening in Japan. Naruto let out his own light chuckling, the sad smile already gone. So do you want to hear how I ended up in here? He asked. Sure, I have all the time in the world to listen to it. Naruto smiled as he kicked himself off the ground before sitting down comfortably in front of Senheim. Well, it all started when. Flashback no jutsu. Earlier that same day, Sengoku Rance Ost, in the piazza. It was still early in the morning. The sun was barely up while the morning dew just slowly glazed upon the grassy fields. Overall the morning was tranquil and peaceful. The wind then blew gently, giving a slight chill to a certain pair of ninjas walking down a forested road leading to Macawa. Suzume, still clad in her short blue kimono, was walking with light footsteps, tiptoeing as she slowly stalked a small blue sparrow in flight that fine morning. Walking a few steps in front of her was none other than Naruto. Still wearing his Anbu gear, the blonde shinobi was silently humming as he busily scribbled down seals using a brush of ink, upon seals on a blank note of paper that he and Suzume bought a few villages back. What are you doing, Nin? Suzume asked, her attention returning to the shinobi in front of her after losing sight of the sparrow. Naruto didn't reply. Ha was too focused at the task at hand. Why wouldn't he? He was making an explosive tag and one wrong stroke would be really bad news for him. In fact, he knew the consequences firsthand since the last time it happened. The shinobi from the other world lost an entire arm. He got better though. Fishcake, what are you doing? Suzume asked. The Iga Nin's curiosity eventually took over, and before she even ticked it, she was already behind her traveling companion, peeking from over his shoulders. Fishcake, said Suzume as she pressed herself at the blonde's back to get a better view of whatever it was he was doing. Moo tilde. Ah, I know. Suzume bopped her hand on an open fist. Mohahohaho tilde. She laughed as the Iga Nin's left hand slowly snaked down towards Naruto's pants. Hora, she shouted, while grabbing the blonde's hyper weapon. Naruto stopped walking and writing, the urge to face palm rising up as he felt two soft mounds of flesh rubbing against his back while another on his junk. He didn't know if the girl was trying to get him killed on purpose or not, but right now he really didn't want to get blown up. Not when Kurama was still resting and had any barely chakra for him to use. He sighed. Suzume, let go or you'll end up exploding with me. Not what I meant. Naruto sighed. I really mean that if I screw up we'd be blown to bits, he warned. Okay, Suzume said as she released her hold on his hyper weapon. So what are you doing? She asked. I LL tell you if you tell me where you go early in the morning for an hour or so when we camp out, Naruto said after noticing the kunoichi habit to vanish from time to time. Taking care of my womanly needs. Fair enough, Naruto said, seemingly satisfied with the answer. You know my kunai's right. Yep tilde, the ones that go kapow tilde th. N kaboom tilde. Do you know why they explode? Naruto asked. Nope tilde. The girl cheerfully replied, making the blonde sweat drop. The way she answered, it was as if she just accepted the existence of the plotting projectiles without even thinking about how a feat was possible. He really didn't know if he should have been scared or impressed. Well, you see this, he said as he took his brush and placed one more perfect ink stroke, completing the tag. This is called Kibaku Fuda, or an explosive tag. Oh, the kunoichi asked, appearing intrigued at the teen's explanation. You just slap it on something. Apply a small amount of chakra to it or light it up and boom, you have yourself an explosion, said Naruto as if to demonstrate. He attached the tag on a nearby tree. Nothing's happening, Suzume said as she stared at the tag. Naruto just rolled his eyes. Just wait. Moo. Nothing. Before she could even finish, the blue-haired kunoichi was cut off by the sound of a large explosion. She immediately covered her ears and closed her eyes. When she opened it, she bore witness to the sight of hundreds of charred wooden splinters scattered on the ground. Cool tilde, the kunoichi said cheerfully as her eyes sparkled. Can I try? Do you know how to use chakra? Chakra, Suzume asked as she tilted her head to the side and placed one finger over her pouting lips. Chakra is the combination of both the physical energy of our body and the spiritual energy gained from training and experience. Every ninja from my village knows how to at least use chakra. Where are you from anyway? The kunoichi asked. Naruto smiled bitterly. Very far away, he told her before shifting the conversation into a different direction. Remember when we met and you sued those clones against me? Yep, Suzume cheerfully replied as she pumped her fists in the air. She knew that the teen purposely steered away where the conversation was heading, and she was willing to respect his wishes. They were ninjas after all, people who live in the shadows of the world, so it was guaranteed that each of them has a secret or two that they did not wish others to know about. Well, can you make a clone for me right now? Sure, Nin. Suzume said as an exact replica of her appeared by her side. Now how did you make that? Naruto asked. I don't know tilde tehehehe tilde, I just saw this one guy do it in the past and before I noticed I was able to do it as well, the girl admitted. Well, try them out, Naruto said as he handed the girl one explosive tag. Yada tilde, the girl cheered out as she walked to a nearby tree and slapped the tag into it before running away and hiding herself behind the blonde. Boom. And like expected, the tree exploded into pieces because of the explosive tags. Suzume cheered at the sight of the destruction while Naruto narrowed his eyes. The girl could definitely use chakra if she was able to make clones and detonate the explosive tags. If so, the girl could probably learn some of his ninjutsu if she kept on traveling with him any longer. That was cool fishcake, can I have more of them? Naruto actually paused for a few seconds and thought about the pros and cons of giving the cheerful Kunoichi a handful of explosive tags that could even take down a castle of 2 if strategically placed correctly. After a few more seconds of internal deliberation, the blonde saw no real problem with it and thus took out 24 bound notes from his pockets. Here, he said as he handed them to the Kunoichi. Don't waste them, okay? Thank you, said Suzume as she placed the notes in her secret hiding spot, which turned out to be her cleavage. Thank you, fishcake, the girl repeated as she walked towards the blonde and kissed him in the cheek much like Isoroku did a few weeks back. Now time to test more of them out, nin nin, the Kunoichi said as she ran towards another tree and placed a tag on it. Naruto placed a hand on his cheek while smiling. His Kunoichi companion could really be childish sometimes. But then again, he really liked the girl when she acted that way. To him it was both cute, funny, and uplifting. It was certainly a good change from the grim and depressed atmosphere he had to live after the annihilation of majority of the Shinobi Alliance. He really was grateful for her presence. He really didn't know where he'd be at the moment if she wasn't with him. Boom boom boom. He heard 3 more explosions coming from the forest. Now I think she's getting carried away, he said with a slight sweat drop as he walked towards the woods. Play Sengoku Rance Ost, Gyurui Banzai. After a few minutes, well, at least half an hour or so of walking, Naruto couldn't help but frown at what he saw. There were multiple craters and singed trees around the area, proving that Suzume was just here. But there was no sight of Suzume. Where the heck is she? Naruto asked as he continued walking while his eyes kept gazing about everywhere, eventually landing on a sight that made him stop on his tracks and raise an eyebrow. In the midst of the forest path was a small clearing with a large stump on the middle of it. On top of the stump, lying deadly still with a snot bubble on its nose, was none other than a tanuki, and not just any regular tanuki. No, it was a tanuki wearing a dark brown chest plate along with black arm guards and greaves to top it off. It was also wearing an orange bandana which was tied firmly around its neck. For Kami's sake, the tanuki looked like a samurai, albeit a small sleeping one, mind you. Letting his own curiosity take over for once, Naruto silently walked to the clearing and gently lifted the tanuki by the scruff of its bandana. He carefully studied the creature before its snot bubble popped. At first he thought that the creature was going to wake up, but apparently it wasn't, as another bubble appeared shortly after the previous one. Well, I've already seen talking frogs in the past, so it really shouldn't surprise me to see something like this, but what the hell is this thing? He asked as he looked closer at the tanuki. Gurgle gurgle, the shinobi heard as he looked down on his stomach. Well, at least let's hope it's edible, Naruto said as he sat down and pulled out a kunai. So I guess I should gut it first, and then clean its insides before eating it. Never really had tanuki before, so I don't know how to cook it. The shinobi was too engrossed in studying the creature while thinking of ways to cook it that he barely noticed a lot of presences coming towards the clearing. Halt! A voice shouted out, making Naruto abandon the hopes for a quick meal. The blonde shinobi tilted his head towards the direction of the voice and saw a tanuki with a long katana strapped in its brown-clad samurai armor. Behind the dog raccoon stood no less than 100 soldiers, all of which wearing thick brown armor that made them look like tanukis. Naruto rubbed his eyes with both hands a few times as he looked at the tanuki armor-wearing men. Seriously, what the hell is wrong with this world? He complained as he placed the kunai back in his vest. What do you think we're doing? The tanuki asked. Getting breakfast. Unhand my brother. Guards seized the man. You can have the tanuki back, but can you please not capture me? I'd rather not deal with killing all your men. Stupid human, just come with us quietly and you won't get hurt, the tanuki said. Well, Naruto slowly inched his hand closer to the ninjutsu strapped around his waist. Before he could even reach it to show the tanuki who it was that will be hurt, he sensed several more presences coming to his location. These ones numbering close to 1,000. Now he was quite confident that he could easily kill all of them with ease, but damn him, and the pacifistic ideology drilled into him by his senseis. A dozen or two bandits would be okay, but Naruto could not condone to spilling the blood of 1,000 or more soldiers who were just doing their jobs. Naruto untied the ninjutsu from his waist, letting it fall to the ground as he placed his hands behind the back of his head and knelt down to surrender. He can always escape later, but for now he'd play along. He really did want to see Macawa in a different perspective, and what better way to do that than to witness firsthand how the ruler of the state runs the place. Hi, I give up, Naruto said as two men wearing that ridiculous armor ran behind him and tied his hands, while another took his sword. Good, the tanuki said as he looked at the bound teen, bring him to Macawa. He'll be placed under trial for attempting to kill a tanuki yokai. Assault on one the generals of Tokugawa Yayasu, and property damage. Property damage? When the hell did I do that? Naruto asked as the tanuki's backup arrived, resulting in him getting surrounded by more soldiers. Sir, we haven't seen anyone in the area, sir, a soldier wearing the tanuki armor said whilst saluting to the tanuki. Well, that means you caused the damage in those woods. That's bull. Take him away, the tanuki ordered while ignoring the blonde's outburst. Hi, the soldiers said as they dragged the teen on the ground. Well, at least it'll be a free trip to Macawa, the blonde said, trying to act as positive as he can while his eyes darted around his surroundings. His eyes then landed on a nearby tree where a blue-haired kunoichi was trying her best to be one with the shadows and hide from the army. That was the last sight he saw before he was knocked unconscious by a blow to the back of the head. Fishcake, Suzume whispered as he watched the blonde shinobi being dragged away by the army of soldiers from the safety of her hiding place on top a nearby tree. Later that day, by this point in time it was already past noon. Are we there yet? Naruto asked for what seemed like the 100th times. It has been quite a long walk back to Macawa, which the blonde found was still half a day's worth of traveling from his and Suzume's earlier spot, and he knew that his lovely captors were on the verge of snapping at him. Did he care? Not really. Did he enjoy tormenting them? Hell the F yeah. Really, it was the little things like is in life that gave the blonde that warm and fuzzy feeling deep inside him. We are almost in Macawa, just a few more minutes away, the tanuki said. From the slight murmurs that he heard, the tanuki and his group of 1,257 strong men and women were out on their monthly routine combat drills up to the point before the group heard of the sound of several explosions coming from one of the nearby forests. All assumed it was an enemy attack. Suzume really dropped the ball on this one. No more explosive tags for her in the future. So are we there yet? Naruto asked again. Yes, we are, the tanuki answered and pointed towards the horizon. Naruto slightly widened his eyes as he saw a gigantic wooden gate reminiscent of the one in Konaha. Move, the tanuki said. Makin. Naruto obliged and walked towards the gate. After passing the wooden gates with soldiers still in tow, Naruto frowned as he subtly glanced upon the citizens of Macawa. They were living rather pitifully, the houses were in bad shape, and there were a lot of beggars on the road. In addition, all of the citizens he saw were wearing tanuki-like clothing, making them look utterly ridiculous. Naruto just shook his head. So are we there yet? He asked once more. Even later that day, after a few more hours of lollygagging about with Naruto slowing the group's progress by irritating his captors and them trying their best to silence him by either punching him in the face or gagging him, the entourage finally reached the richer part of Macawa, or as the blonde mentally labeled it, the Tanuki district. Setting foot upon the area, Naruto has noticed the abundance of the small beings living about in luxurious mansion-style houses. The human district really paled in comparison with this area. Also, looks he was getting from the Tanukis that inhabited the area reminded him of a dark time during his childhood. It was the look of utmost disgust and bigotry, as if they were looking at beings inferior to them. With that in mind, after traveling Japan, Macawa would be one of the first on his list of places that needed to change. He looked at the tanuki in front of him, the one clad in brown samurai outfit. Despite the tanuki's light-hearted attitude towards other tanukis, the blonde observed that it had a penchant habit of looking down on human and regarding them as nothing but live stocks, meat shields, and workers. An ideal that he observed was shared amongst the other tanukis as well. So are we there yet? Naruto asked once more while smirking as he was led into a large castle that stood far within Macawa. The tanuki just growled as it restrained itself from drawing its sword and cutting down their irritating prisoner. No, he was going to make sure that the teen was Oh, face the harshest of punishments for the crimes that he committed before finally killing him. Naruto in Japan. Play Sengoku Rance Ost. Sensitive atmosphere. Then they dragged me along to this place and threw me in this cell. He chuckled lightly. You purposely got caught. Do you know how stupid that sounds? If I were you, I would have fought against all odds until the bitter end. Ha ha ha, but I was outnumbered 1,000 to 1. As tempting as that sounded, I'd rather not get myself killed or needlessly kill if possible. That and I can always escape this place easily. Naruto then shook his head while stretching his arms to the side before folding them behind his head. You sound really confident that you can escape this place easily. Yep. Why is that? Oh, you haven't noticed yet? Naruto asked as he pointed to his arms. Wait, where are your stocks? Senheim asked as her eyes widened in surprise. She didn't even notice him take them off. They were really uncomfortable, sighed Brock. Eat them while telling you my story, he said, pointing at the shattered remains of the wooden binds before crossing his arms over his chest and smiling at the woman in front of him. Now mind telling me why you're in here, Senheim? Oh, it's nothing special. The woman smiled as she let the fact that the teen has easily broke through the binds that she has tried so hard to break for months now. Aiju. She fought off the invading forces of the tanuki yokai until the end without ever backing down. I wasn't really going to let them easily take over my land. Your land? Naruto asked. Rightful heir, the ruler of Macawa, she answered, making the blonde nod in response. So did they tire you out in the end, then captured you? Pretty much. I've fought against them for hours before their main generals came and knocked me butt. For a fat-ass tanuki, that Yayasu sure can pack a mean punch, she said as she recalled the yokai lord being the one to knock her out. Okay, so do you hate the tanuki yokai? You've been asking a lot of questions, you know. He, call it idle curiosity. The woman closed her eyes. She didn't really know why, but for some reason she felt like answering the blonde teen's questions. I dislike them, but not to the point that I'd seek out the annihilation of their whole race. I do want to retake Macawa from them one day, but that's really just a minor wish. Really? I was sure that it would be a big deal. So do you want to get out of this place with me? He lightly scratched the back of his head. Then what's your wish then? To fight. The girl responded without hesitation. My wish is to fight in a life and death battle, to live through the harsh fields of life and death, mowing down my enemies while my life itself is at stake, he asked once more as he looked carefully at the girl. Through his career as a shinobi, the blonde had developed the ability to read others' emotions, feelings, and with practice even predict their thoughts, to see underneath as his old sensei Kakashi always told him. Then what would you do if Japan was already at peace? Quote, I don't think that will ever be possible, the girl said, smiling sadly. Having fought in dozens of battlefields, leading her warriors in the front line against the invading forces of the Takeda house, the pesky Hannies of the East, and the whole yokai invasion force of Yayasu, she has long since realized that it was almost impossible to bring the lands at peace. The only possibility of peace to come was to unify the lands, and that itself would be an almost impossible task, since she firmly believed that no one throughout Japan had the qualities to unite the whole country under one single banner. It was a pessimistic view, but she has reached that conclusion long ago. That's why he enjoys battling in the front line of war itself. Why shouldn't she? It was never going to end, so she might as well enjoy it. She then looked at the blonde teen in front of her and noticed him smiling sadly as well. Trust me, peace will come. Teen reassured her as he stood up and dusted himself off before walking towards her. What a foolish wish, the woman whispered as she refused to meet the blonde's gaze. I know, you know what I want you to come with me, the teen said, surprising the woman. What? She almost shouted out. I'll show you that peace is possible, the teen said as he placed his hand over her wooden stocks before crushing it under the very grip of his hand. She smirked. I promise nothing, but if you'll help me get out of this cell, then I would kindly oblige to join you. Good enough, Naruto said as he extended his free hand towards the war princess. My, what a gentle man, she said as she grabbed the hand and helped herself up. Don't get used to it. Oh, I'm far from gentle, Naruto joked as he walked towards the cell. So how are we going to escape? The perplexed asked as she dusted herself off before stretching around to loosen her stiff muscles. Well, we could either sneaking out of here silently through the night, or we could cause hell as much as we can before leaving. He placed his hand under his chin. Right now I'm just weighing my options. Boom B. Boom 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 boom. Play Sengoku Rance Ost. Panic. What was that? Sen asked as she looked around, visibly surprised at the sounds of multiple explosions echoing about the area. Naruto let out an exasperated sigh. That would be us throwing plan out the window, he said as he channeled chakra to his legs and kicked the thick wooden bars of their prison cell a few times, effectively destroying it before walking out of the cell with Sen in tow. What the hell? Naruto heard from the hallways. A few seconds later, the one of the two bald guards that led him to his jail earlier arrived on the scene. The prisoners are s. The man didn't even get to finish what he was about to say when a kunai was firmly deposited in his neck. Suzume, remind me to never give you expel. Oh, sives again, Naruto said as the blue-haired kunoichi dropped down from the ceiling. Oh, so is this the one you were talking about in your story earlier? Sen asked as she crossed her arms under her chest. Yep, she's half the reason I'm here in the first place. My bad nin tilde. Suzume apologized as she rubbed the back of her with her right hand. As much as I'd like to see you two catch up and talk, I'm pretty sure we'd better hurry up and escape, Senheim said as she tapped her feet on the floor. Oh, we were getting to that, but before we leave, he looked at Sen. Do you know where they keep the confiscated weapons around here? I'm kinda missing my sword. I know where it is. Follow me, the war princess said as she ran down the dark corridor following the path where the guard came from. Let's go, Suzume, Naruto said as he ran after the war princess. Hi Tilda, the kunoichi replied as she ran beside the shinobi. After a few minutes of running, Naruto and Suzume eventually caught up to Sen. Ime, who was standing amidst 5 unconscious bodies lying on the ground. She was standing in front of a metal door with a puzzled expression. The girl turned around and spotted Naruto. I tried kicking it but it won't budge. Can you open this? She asked. I'll try, Naruto said as he channeled his chakra on his fist before punching the door. His first punch didn't damage it. His second managed to make a small dent. His third made another dent. His fourth wasn't a punch but a sphere of spiraling chakra in his palm. That showed the door who was the boss. Thanks, Sen said as she ran inside the room. Okay, time to look for my sword, Naruto said as he too went inside the room. Suzume, stand guard, he asked. Sure Tilda. Not even a minute passed before Sen and Naruto were out of the room. The blonde and the perplexed had an equally happy smile in their faces as they held their weapons. With Naruto holding his sheathed ninjutsu in his right hand and Senheim holding her weapon of choice along with a pole arm with a curved blade on the end. It was a Nagatana, and by the way the woman held it she appeared to be quite good at using the weapon. So what's the plan? Sen asked. Well, since stealth is out of the option, we're going out through the main gates, said Naruto. And how are you proposing we do that? You do know they close the gates at nighttime. Well, simple, he looked at Suzume. Do you know how to open the gates? The girl nodded. Yep, we can either manually open it by pushing it open or pulling these 2 lever thingies on the side of the gates to open it. Nin. Can you open the door for us? Sure, no problem nin tilde, the girl kunoichi said as she saluted. He looked at Senheim. We're going to split up in 3 groups, Suzume will open the door. I'll cause hell to make a diversion while you escape. I disagree with your plan. I say we both cause hell, Senheim said while Naruto gave her an "Are you kidding me?" expression. Naruto sighed. The war princess was really looking for a battle. Okay then, so Suzume, you'll open the gates, Sen and I will cause hell, and let's meet up in the plaza near the main gates, he said as he recalled a small place in the human district of Macawa. Hi Tilda, said the ever-cheerful kuonichi. Sure, Senheim said confidently as she held onto her weapon. She was going to enjoy this. Naruto took a deep breath. Well, good luck guys, he said as Suzume nodded and vanished in a swirl of leaves. That made Naruto blink for a while. When did she learn Shunshin? Let's go, said the war princess. Mama, don't worry too much about it. How hard could this be? Naruto in Japan. Me and my big mouth. Naruto complained as he ducked to avoid getting beheaded by a katana. He then quickly shifted his footing to get within the soldier's guard before punching the man in the stomach. Predictably, the man crumbled under the weight of his punch. He then pulled out his ninjutsu and quickly sliced down 4 approaching spearmen before they could even attempt to attack him. Currently the teen was being hounded down upon dozens of soldiers. Some were wielding spears while others wielded swords, as he ran upon the empty streets of Macawa. Let it be known that when it came to this blonde Jinchuriki, nothing ever goes according to plan. Along the wide multiverse that is anime, a bespectacled man with brown hair clad in black robes and a white Awari sneezed. "Yes, you and your big mouth," said the war princess, who was standing a few meters away from Naruto as she carefully twirled herself around, evading blow per blow from surrounding soldiers, while countering them with either kicks or punches or mowing them down with her weapon. "And why the heck are they still wearing those ridiculous-looking armor?" he added as he channeled wind chakra along the edge of his blade before swinging it multiple times, sending blade upon blade of deadly wind towards the enemy. Safe to say those who were after him were put down with ease. "I think it's because Yayasu has a few screws loose," Sen answered as she slashed a nearby swordsman with her naginata and smashed a spearman's face with her weapon's butt. The day after he conquered Macawa, he made everyone wear that stupid-looking clothing. She stabbed her naginata to the ground and vaulted herself up in the air so she could firmly plant her feet on the face of a nearby warrior and use it as a platform to kick off of. She then pulled her naginata out of the ground as she majestically flipped through the air and landed beside Naruto. "Isn't this fun?" she asked as she mowed down a group of approaching swordsmen with a swing of her weapon. "Not really. I could think of other ways to have fun without getting involved in life or death battles." He fired off another blade of wind from his ninjutsu, taking down 5 nearby soldiers before sheathing his blade. "'Cause you know people die when they are killed. Ha ha ha. I live for moments like this." Sen laughed out as she mowed down more enemies, not hearing the blonde's reply. "Yeah, and let's make sure you live another day," Naruto said as he tripped a samurai that tried to cut him down before chopping the man in the back of the neck, knocking him unconscious. "Ha ha ha. Yes, live to fight another day," the war princess said as she kicked away a foot soldier that she impaled with her blade. "Sen, which is the right way?" Naruto asked as he pointed at a nearby intersection with one path led to the left while the other led to the right. "It doesn't matter, both will lead to the plaza," she answered. "Halt!" A loud familiar voice echoed around the streets filled with unconscious and dead bodies of soldiers. Naruto looked towards the direction of the voice and found 3 figures standing on top of a nearby building. The speaker was none other than the tanuki that captured him earlier. Beside it was the sleeping tanuki he tried to eat for breakfast, and behind it stood what Naruto could only describe as one of the biggest bipedal tanuki he has ever seen. It has the same light gray fur as the other 2 tanuki, but he was bigger than any regular person. It was at least as big as the Raikage from his world. Clad in black samurai-like more with a huge bead necklace around his neck, the tanuki stood menacingly as it held long spear even taller than it while glaring at them. He internally smirked. It seems that he finally found someone in this world that may put up a good fight. He didn't necessarily like to fight, but he needed a challenge every now and then, less he wants his own skills to dull. Naomasa, Naruto heard from Sen with a hint of malice in her tone. "War princess," the tanuki now known as spat out with a hint of fear in its voice, "I would ask for you humans to kindly go back to prison, or else." "Or else what?" The princess snapped back as she pointed the blade of her naginata at the tanuki. The small tanuki clicked his blade as numerous soldiers came running out from both the left and right path leading to the plaza. "Or else we'll be forced to drag you back in your cell," he added as he dragged the sleeping tanuki and jumped from the building and landed on the right path. The bigger tanuki, on the other hand, jumped to the left path as it brandished its spear. "Well, I'll take the big one," Naruto said as he slowly drew his ninjutsu. "Then I'll take the other 2, Sen confirmed as she shifted her LD on her weapon while slightly bending her knees. "On 3, Naruto asked as Senheim smirked. It was as if the 2 already knew each other for a long time. 3, both shouted out as they kicked the ground and ran towards their respective opponents. Naruto in Japan. Play Sengoku Rance Ost. Drive back the enemy. With Suzume. Here we go, nin nin. Suzume said as she flicked blood off her tant. Oh, while pulling down on the two levers she mentioned earlier, causing the gate to slowly open. She then placed her hand inside her cleavage and pulled out two explosive notes. The kunoichi placed the notes on top of the levers before turning around and jumping to a nearby roof. Boom boom. The kunoichi nodded as she heard the explosions. With those, there was no way of closing the gates without having to manually close it, and even by then it would take at least 5 minutes with 20 to 30 people to shut the thing off. Better get back to the others, nin, the kunoichi said as she kicked Ed off the roof and began jumping from one rooftop to another. 1 little 2 little 3, the kunoichi started singing out as she drew her tanto that was tied behind her back with her left hand and D took a handful of shuriken with her right. She then vanished in a burst of speed before reappearing in a nearby building. Little Macawa nin, she continued as 3 ninjas fell from their hiding place. All were wearing dark brown clothing that made them look like a tanuki, and most of all were dead. 4 little 5, Suzume continued as she took out 2 kunais from God knows where and flung them towards the shadows of a nearby building, hitting 2 hidden ninjas in their heads, killing them immediately, and once again proving that she wasn't known as the best kunoichi in Japan for nothing. Little 6, she jumped off her spot to avoid a barrage of shuriken coming from multiple directions. She then landed on a nearby house right at the same time as 2 other ninjas appeared. Suzume CKLY kicked off the ground and ran towards one of them in a zigzag-like manner, making the 2 miss all their attempts to kill her with their shurikens. The kunoichi brought her tanto forward and stabbed Ed the unlucky ninja in the gut before jumping behind him and using him as a shield to block another hail of shurikens. Truly it was an unlucky day to be that ninja. Arigato nin, Suzume said as she quickly pulled out a shuriken and nailed the visible ninja in the forehead, making him fall on the ground dead. She then let go of the pincushion-like body of her shield and let it fall on the ground. Ah, I lost count, she said, pouting before quickly back-flipping several times to evade a rain of kwanis and shurikens. Oh well, she said as she pulled out 2 kunais and threw it at 2 figures she saw sneaking about in the shadows. To her surprise, though, her kunais were parried away. Oh, finally someone strong nin, Suzume cheered as she watched the 2 figures jump out of the shadows and land on a house opposite to where she stood. In front of her stood 2 small tanukas, both clad in stereotypical ninja gear that hid all but their faces. Tisk, we missed, the ninja clad in blue calmly said. I told you we should have just snuck around her and sliced her throat open, the drunk tanuki ninja clad in purple said. Moo, what cute tanukas do you 2 want to be my pets? Suzume asked Ed before her eyes narrowed as she saw the tanuki nin clad in blue and purple taking out dozens of shurikens. The Iga nin quickly took out a few handfuls of shurikens and began throwing it towards the tanuki nin, who opted to do the same. There was a loud echo of steel meeting steel that covered the whole area as dozens upon dozens of shurikens clashes with each other. Human, how dare you think of us as pets? We are proud tanuki yokai. The greatest ninja generals of our Lord Tokugawa Yayasu, the one clad in blue said as he stopped throwing shurikens before pulling out 2 kunais. Hick, what Han? Zo said. The purple-clad tanuki added as he drew his tanto. Too bad nin, Suzume said as she tightly held her tanto on one hand while holding a kunai in the other. The 3 then vanished in bursts of speed befitting a high-level ninja, making the clanging of metal against metal continue to echo throughout the area. Hick, got you, the drunk tanuki said as he slashed his tanto down on Suzume shoulder, only for the kunoichi to twist body midair to evade the blow before countering with her own blow, bringing down her kunai down on the tanuki neck, only for it to be blocked by Hattori Hudi. It was best to interfere less he wanted the other tanuki dead. Tisk, Suzume clicked her tongue as she blocked a kunai strike from Hanzo with her tanto before kicking the purple-clad tanuki away. She then focused on her attention on the blue-clad tanuki, quickly exchanging strikes before pushing away from each other and landing on opposite roofs once more. Suzume then quickly tossed her kunai at Hanzo, who blocked it by throwing his against it. You are good for a human, Hanzo said as he took out a bunch of shurikens and started throwing them at Suzume. You're not bad for a tanuki, Suzu. Mi replied as she dodged the shurikens before quickly ducking to avoid the purple-clad tanuki tanto. Your friend on the other hand needs to be sober for this nin, she added as she punched tanuki nin in the stomach before kicking it in the face, sending it flying towards Hanzo who just sidestepped to evade his comrade. I'll keep that in mind. Tilda, I'd like to fight more but I have somewhere to go, Suzume said as she started running along the rooftops heading towards the meeting point. Sorry but the only place you're going tonight is a cell, the tanuki said as he began Flynn. Jing more shuriken at Suzume forcing the kunoichi to momentarily stop in her tracks to block the projectiles with her own. Hanzo then quickened his pace and caught up to Suzume. Ansatsu, assassinate. Ion, the tanuki said in a scary and chilly tone as its hands holding two kunais blurred. Suzume smiled clearly impressed. The tanuki was definitely fast but it wasn't as fast as his. Suzume's eyes focused on the attack making her see it in slow motion. Using her tanto the kunoichi blocked both strikes. They were strong but it wasn't as strong as his. She couldn't afford to lose to ninjas of this level. Not when she was friends with the strongest one in all of Japan. Truth be told, ever since her one-sided battle against the blonde shinobi, the kunoichi actually found herself training more often than she was before. That was the real reason why she always leaves their camp early. She wanted to get stronger, or at least strong enough for the blonde to acknowledge her strength. Too slow, she said as she sent a palm strike at the tanuki's face, pushing it away. Hick, don't forget about me, said the purple-clad tanuki who appeared out of nowhere, tanto pointed at her neck. Tanuki Konbi, tanuki combination. What? Suzume said, eyes widening in shock. It's over, Hanzo said as he appeared behind her with one kunai aimed at her liver while the other was aimed right over her heart. No ansatsu, true assassination, but before their blades could even reach the kunoichi they noticed a smirk on her face as she pulled out a small kunai with some weird paper attached to it and dropped it on the ground. Gotcha nin, she shouted out as a clone that looks exactly like her appeared behind her and pushed the kunoichi away from the tanuki's combined attack. What hick? The purple-clad tanuki said as his eyes landed on the piece of paper that was slowly burning away. The hell? Hanzo finished as both of them were covered by a white light courtesy of the tag. Boom. Suzume smiled as she watched the body of the two now unconscious tanukis fall limp on the rooftop. They were slightly singed but she was sure they'll get better one day. Tilda, sorry for that but I really need to hurry. Ciao Tilda, the kunoichi said as she looked at the direction of the plaza and started running. These things are really useful, she said as she looked at the dozen or so tags she had left. Quote, I should ask Fishcake to make me some more nin. Naruto in Japan. Play Sengoku Rance Ost. Slapping fight with Naruto. Well, that happened, Naruto said as he dusted his hands. Surrounding him were about 80 or 90 soldiers, all in varying degrees of injuries and unconsciousness as they lay flat on the ground. He then turned his attention to the silent figure who just watched him dismantle what he was assuming was a whole platoon of soldiers in minutes. So mind telling me your name? Naruto asked as he slowly walked towards the huge tanuki. The tanuki didn't reply, it just raised its hands with spear in hand. The tanuki began spinning the spear. Okay, so what does that suppose? Naruto cut himself off as he immediately took a few steps back to evade a few swipes from the tanuki's spear. That's some power you have there, Naruto praised as he saw chunks of earth torn from the ground with each passing blow. But are you fast enough? Naruto asked as he lowered himself to avoid another swipe from the tanuki. He then drew his ninjutsu and slashed horizontally. To his surprise, the tanuki actually managed to take a few steps back to avoid the full brunt of his attack. Strong and fast despite your large body, Naruto said as he brought his Nijato up to block the spear's shaft which the tanuki tried to use to hammer him down. The tanuki said nothing as it took a few more steps back and pulled its spear back. Its eyes never leaving the blonde shinobi for even a second. Let's see how tough you are though, Naruto said as he sheathed his ninjutsu and took out 3 kunais wrapped with explosion tags from his vest. The blonde then threw the 3 explosive kunais at the tanuki. The black-clad tanuki, Honda, just stared at the kunai as they made contact with its armor. Boom boom boom. Naruto had to let out an impressed whistle as the smoke receded. Normally those 3 tags had enough power to take down a small building, so he couldn't help but be impressed when he saw the tanuki standing relatively unharmed. Fast, strong, and durable, perfect. The tanuki took one hand off its spear and began dusting itself off. Well, no choice then, Naruto said as he ced his hand on the handle of his ninjutsu. I haven't had a good fight in ages. That fight with Inukai was a good warm-up, but, he kicked off the ground and ran towards the tanuki, catching it off guard. Naruto drew his blade and quickly slashed the tanuki twice across the chest, making cracks along its armor as he did so. The tanuki staggered back before finally managing to hold its spear up properly with both hands. It then began to block the furious assault consisting of low and high slashes coming from several directions. Despite its normally silent and calm face, the Honda was actually happy. It wasn't often that Tanuki yokai could find anyone that can match up against it. Honda smiled as it held its ground and began to counter the blonde's attacks, its own thrust and swipes. Ha ha ha, Nar. Yuto laughed out as he kept exchanging blows with the tanuki before he took a few steps back as he sheathed his ninjutsu while making a few hand seals. Fuden. Daidappa, wind release. Great breakthrough. Naruto whispered out as he sent a fierce gust of wind at the tanuki. The tanuki jumped from its position as a small crater appeared where he stood. Landing on the ground, the tanuki then kicked off the ground once more and started running towards the Naruto. Pointing its spear at the blonde, the tanuki began thrusting the spear rapidly, forcing the blonde to a defensive. Damn, you're good, Naruto said as narrowly avoided or blocked all the blows. Boom. Naruto heard from a distance, knowing that only one person could be responsible for it, the shinobi side. Tisk. As much as I want to enjoy this fight, I have a schedule to keep, he said as he sheathed his ninjutsu. Honda didn't say anything and just kept its furious assault. I'm really sorry about this, Naruto said as he slowly walked towards Honda while avoiding a thrust aimed for his heart. But I can't have my friends. He then narrowly avoided one that was aimed for his face. Get tossed back to prison when we just barely got out, he added as he caught the spear with his left hand and extended his right hand to his side while a small blue orb formed within it. Honda's eyes widened as it saw the sphere in the teen's hawk. It just instinctively knew that the thing was dangerous. Trusting its instincts, the tanuki released his grasp on his weapon and jumped back only to find the blonde teen followed him. Rasengan SP. Iroling sphere, Naruto said as he crashed the sphere on the tanuki's chest. Strong, Honda whispered as it watched its chest plate crumble before the blonde's attack. That was the last thing it saw before the sphere made contact with its chest, sending it flying towards a nearby building. Let's fight some other time, Naruto said as he ran towards the rendezvous point. Naruto in Japan. Play Sengoku Rance Ost. Advance on with Sen. Hiya, shouted out the war princess as she swung her Nagitana with one hand. Although not as strong as she was before due to month of imprisonment, the princess brute force was still enough to send 7 nearby soldiers flying away. Aura, she shouted again as she pulled her Nagitana close to her and placing it behind her neck and against her shoulder blades. Holding it in place, the war princess then spun around to hitting all that dared to approach her before coming to abrupt stop and using the momentum of the entire spin to send one strong and precise strike at a certain creature that stood in the middle of the mob of enemy soldiers. The tiny brown armored tanuki screamed out as it was lucky enough to have ducked down to evade the all-powerful swipe from the war princess. The swordsman standing beside the tanuki though didn't share the same fate as he was bisected in half by the blow. The war princess pulled her Aneda back, its butt hitting a warrior trying to flank her from behind on the face. She turned to the man and grabbed him by the head before kneeing him in the face. Disappointing, the war princess added, sighing near the end. Even though she was in the midst of a battlefield, it was not enough to get her blood boiling. The whole scenario was just too bland for her. Where was the life and death struggle that made her body heat up? She looked at nearby swordsmen and spearmen all clad in that ridiculous-looking tanuki armor. She just had to internally shake her head. Has her land really fallen that low? To have weaklings like these fight for their nation. Was this place even worth it anymore? So far from what she has seen, its military forces paled in comparison than what it was used to be. And again, it might be because all of the competent warriors were killed off when Yayasu attacked. It's a shame to see my land like this, she complained before resuming her onslaught. Kicking off the ground, Senheim ran towards the nearest group of soldiers. With a swing of her naginata, the entire platoon was mowed down. Left and right the woman swung her weapon and brought down her fury upon all those who called for it, proving that she was worthy of her name. Truly a princess fit for war. Sen kept moving, running forward as she took down all that stood in her way. She then stopped for a moment to take a look at her surroundings. Before she even noticed it, she was already in the rendezvous point and her enemies were down to a dozen or two spearmen and swordsmen along with Inaomasa and the still sleeping Sakakibara Yasumasa. How the sleeping tanuki kept up with the chase she had no idea. "Well, I guess I'll make my stand here," said Sen as she flicked off the blood trickling along the blade her Naginata. "Those two better hurry up. You won't be waiting for anyone," he said as it shakily held its sword in hand. It was well known that despite being the weakest amongst the generals of Yayasu, it was also the most prideful of them all. Honda probably defeated the blonde by now. He pointed his sword at Senheim, while Hanzo and Sakari has probably taken care of whoever it was that caused all of those explosions. The tanuki jumped back and to avoid a half-hearted trust coming from the war princess who was just rolling her eyes. "Enough talking. Now will you fight, or will you run away like a coward?" "What are you talking about? You lost the last time we fought." "Well, I remember it differently. I remember you running away while I knocked out all o' your friends. If it wasn't for that damned Yayasu I would have won," the woman said as she swung her Naginata twice, slashing two nearby swordsmen who tried attacking her. "Don't you guys know it's rude to interrupt when a lady is talking?" "Hee-ah," shouted he as he jumped and threw his own slash at the war princess. Emphasis on try, because before he even got close the princess already landed her fist upon the top Nuki's face, making it crumble down into ground before it was hit by the butt off her Naginata, sending it spiraling towards a group of nearby soldiers that were blown away as well. "Get up and fight," Sen said as she looked at the brown-armored tanuki. "Grr, that was just practice. I meant to do that," it said as it held on its bleeding nose. "This will be over in a flash," the tanuki said, trying to boost what little of its confidence it had left. Honestly, it was beginning to think that this day was one of the worst in its life. "My words exactly," Senheim said, grinning as she kicked off the ground and ran towards the tanuki. To its credit, he managed to stand up and throw a perfect horizontal slash towards the war princess. Sadly though, she saw it coming and managed to jump over its attack before swinging her Naginata down. As the Nagitana's blade descended upon its shoulder, the tanuki Yukai's life flashed before his very eyes. In the end though, as it felt the sharp cold steel digging in its flesh, it only thought about one thing. About the one human that started this chain of unfortunate events. About the one human that is to blame for this terrible day. "I hate blonde humans," it thought as its limp body fell on the ground unconscious. The perplexed looked down at her opponent's body. Gritting her teeth, she said, "Weak," as she flicked the blood off her Naginata. "So who's next?" she asked as she looked at the others, or at least tried to look at the others before she even noticed it. The only one left in the plaza was her, the bodies of the fallen, and one sleeping tanuki. Senheim frowned. "This is disappointing." "Yohu tilde," shouted the ever so happy Suzume as she landed beside the war princess. "Hello tilde," the kunoichi greeted. "Hello kunoichi-san. How are you doing, nin? I'm doing better than when I was in prison, that's for sure." She then looked at the still sleeping tanuki. "You know I've always wanted to do this." "Do what?" "You'll see," answered Senheim, as she walked towards the tanuki before pulling her right leg back. She smirked before punting the sleeping tanuki with all her strength, sending it flying up into the air. "Mwahahaha," laughed the kunoichi. "Ha ha ha." Senheim chuckled proudly as she watched the tanuki fade out onto the night sky. "So you two think that kicking my children around is humorous?" A deep, loud, and very imposing voice echoed throughout the plaza. That made the two stop laughing almost immediately while their bodies tensed up. Senheim and Suzume only had a few seconds to jump back a few feet away to avoid a large figure falling towards them. In front of the two, a large tanuki even larger than the one clad in black that Naruto fought earlier stood on top of a large crater created by its fall. It was wearing a GE dark orange kimono that showed off a good part of its well-toned chest and abdomen. On his shoulder were dark blue samurai shoulder guards while 4 katanas were strapped along its waist. Covering the lower part of its body was a steel-like dome that hid most of its lower body aside from its feet. Aside from that there was ungodly amount of killing intent and pure yuki rolling off the creature in waves. The tanuki yukai's name is Tokugawa Yayasu, and he was beyond pissed. Naruto in Japan and cut. Sorry for the Cliffy, but this one was just getting too ridiculously long, 15k plus, so I decided to chop it in two. The OCC tag from earlier was for Yayasu *s generals. They were basically comedic characters before, but I was like meh, I wanted to make them more threatening than what they are since they are technically yokai and their views on humans were iffy, since I recall them saying that they would cut up humans, place them in a pot, then eat them. Also for future reference, I'm planning to allow yukais to gain the ability to use yuki just to give them a power up. I mean, come on, without it Tokugawa would be Naruto's bitch, but yeah, I'm going to give him the ability to use yuki, where he'll have a full power, feral mode akin to when he uses his special attack in dungeons. So yeah, Suzume and Sen are going to get slaughtered with Naruto. That aside, to give everyone a good idea of the power ranking of Japan and where Naruto actually stands, let's put it like this. Miki, fully awakened, 100% Dark Lord, Orochi equals Naruto, full Biju Cloak, Xavier, full power with Apostles, Naruto. Ink Biju Cloak equals Omachi equals Masamune, both using Yuki, Kentaro, Demon equals Masamune, no Yuki equals Omachi, no Yuki equals Naruto, Sage equals Rance, Serious, with Rance attack Tokugawa, full yokai power, Naruto, normal, Mori, cursed, Senheim, Suzume. Rance, not serious, Kentaro, Tokugawa, lazy, equals Inukai. Something like that. Again, this is pretty vague since I'm not quite sure if Orochi is stronger than the Demon King, GIV. Me time to tweak it. Feedback will also be taken in with regard to power level. As for the whole storyline progression, the war will start around chapter 10 or 11, so please try to be patient until then. Also, should I at one point give Naruto Nico so he can destroy Devil's barriers, or should he just be awesome and brute force his way into destroying them? Either way, I'm planning to make it awesome, lols. Side from that, just want some feedback on the fight scenes. I still think I need improvement with them and so on, so I'd really appreciate some criticism. Oh, and since I'm basing this on an arrow I felt like I should place something like this. Branch point 1 choices in the forest. To give up and get arrested. Naruto got jailed in Macawa. True route. Total damage done. Soldiers incapacitated. 293. Generals defeated. 5. Buildings damaged. 21. Allies lost. 0. To fight off the army. If Naruto fought his way through the army, what if bad end, peace through destruction route aka pain route. Total damage done. Soldiers incapacitated. 1253. Generals defeated. 2. Buildings damaged. 0. Forest is wrecked though. Allies lost. 1. This would have inadvertently led to a bad end because Suzume would have been caught in between the crossfire and killed, making Naruto snap and kill off all the entire army before proceeding to Macawa and destroying it. He then went on to conquer the whole nation of Joppa, and through force, believing it is the way to true peace, before leading the whole country in a war against both Lysis and Zeth. Japan eventually comes out on top, destroying both the empires. They are Hen attacked by Hellman during their moment of weakness, which utterly destroyed their armies. Naruto's fate through this route remains unknown, but it's most likely that he died during the war. And loss. Part I'd like opinions about actually giving some characters some skills or techniques, before anyone even thinks about it. Naruto will not learn Getsuga Tenshou. I'm thinking more along the lines giving people like Senheim some Nagitana-based skills, Kazuko's Ajito skill from Magikoi, or giving Rinmara and Kenshin some sword skills from other anime verse. That said, I just want opinions on the matter. And here is the reward for reading through all my spoiler for a future chapter way into the future. Mwahahaha, life is so great. Rance laughed out as he walked down the streets of a certain city. Are you sure, master? I think that last place we stopped by purposely ripped us off, said Sil as she walked beside her master. Gah, he hits her in the head. Don't say that. I'm having such a nice today. Ouch tilde. Sil cried out as she held on to her head. Wait, why are you having a good day again, master? Sil just sighed at her master's antics. She was sure one of this day's he'll get the two of them in a deep mess that they had no way of coming out of. This continued. There she is, the brown-haired warrior shouted as he pointed in a nearby store. Sil followed the direction her master's fingers and spotted a beautiful girl, cerulean blue eyes and long blonde hair styled with pigtails. She had lightly tanned skin and was wearing a white robe with its sleeves folded up, along with a dark blue apron that barely hid her wonderful figure. It's Rance time, the man shouted out as he ran towards the store. Elsewhere, the blonde shinobi was sitting silently on a veranda overlooking the small patio from his house. Fine day we're having today. Naruto heard the ever-familiar voice of one of his many lovers as she sat beside him and placed a small tray with a cup of tea on top of it. Sure is, Naruto said as he took the cup and slowly took a sip. Your tea is as good as ever, he said, making his lover's face flush red. It's nothing special, don't cut yourself short, your tea has always been excellent, Naruto said as he took a sip off his tea. He then froze in place and spat the tea out. What the fuck? He shouted as he suddenly stood up from his seat. What's the matter? One of my clones just dispelled. Oh, what did it say? Naruto shook his head and began shaking in rage. I'm going to fucking kill that guy, Naruto shouted out from the top of his lungs as he ran out of his house, leaving behind his confused lover. I wonder what happened, she asked as she stared at the dust trail left behind by her lover. With Rance. Rance just stared in show. CK as the girl he was about to trust his hyper weapon in vanished in a puff of white smoke. What the hell? What am I supposed to do with this thing? He said, gesturing to his ever-erect hyper weapon. Master, I think we should go, Sil pleaded as she could have sworn she felt trouble brewing in the horizon. Not until I figure out what the fuck just happened, he looked at his slave, that and after. You help me out with this, he said, pointing at his hyper weapon once more. But master, I really feel that something bad is going to happen. Tisk. Fine, then I'll be satisfied if you just blow me. Sil was about to retort only to stop when she felt tremors along with hearing the sounds of heavy footsteps heading towards the store. What the hell is happening? Rance asked as he felt the tremors as well. Crash. The wooden wall of the store was blown away, shocking both the naked brown-haired man and his pink-haired companion. Amidst the pile of broken wood stood a spiky-haired blonde man with blue eyes. And man, did he look pissed. Who are you? Asked Rance. You, the teen said as he slowly walked towards the still naked swordsman. Oi, I asked, who are you? You, he repeated as he got closer and closer to the man. Sil gulped as she took a few steps away from her master. She didn't know who the blonde teen was, but apparently her master did something to piss him off. The teen topped just right in front of Rance. You are so fucking dead, Naruto shouted as he pulled his fist back and slugged Rance in the face, sending the naked man flying back through another wall. That day marked the first meeting between one Naruto Namikaze of Japan and Rance of the continent. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.